World Cup 2026 starts in less than 2 years, which means the qualifying games for the tournament have already started. Not only that, with the World Cup being expanded to 48 teams this year, we have some brand new qualifying formats. And because of that, these World Cup qualifiers have been nothing but insane, with so many upsets happening in each confederation. So with that being said, let's take a look at everything going on in these crazy World Cup qualifiers for 2026, with a section of this video being split off into 4 different windows: pre-summer 2024, September 2024, October 2024, and then November 2024. Let's go. Let's start off with Africa's World Cup qualifying. And as we all know from AFCON already, African football is definitely the most unpredictable, wildest, and most fun form of the sport. Especially because even with Africa getting a total of 9 spots at the World Cup, their qualifying process is still extremely brutal. To qualify, you have to top the group that every country is currently in. And if you're one of the best 4 second place countries, you get thrown into another group with all the other second place teams. And the team that comes out on top in that group will be sent to the Interconfederation playoffs. So in summary, try to get first or you're cooked. Starting off with Group A of these qualifiers, we've got Egypt, Guinea-Bissau, Burkina Faso, Sierra Leone, Ethiopia, and Djibouti. And to be honest, compared to the other African World Cup qualifying groups, this might be one of the only normal ones. That's because Egypt are currently on top of the group, with them being undefeated, winning 3 games and drawing once. And this is due to them slapping up Djibouti 6-0, with Mo Salah scoring 4 goals. Then they went on to beat Sierra Leone 2-0, beat Burkina Faso, who are a pretty underrated side, 2-1, and then they drew to Guinea-Bissau most recently 1-1, thanks to Salah scoring in the second half to bring the game back level. And not gonna lie, as a Mohamed Salah stan, it's nice to see Egypt getting another opportunity at the World's Tournament, since obviously it's looking very likely that they'll qualify. Look at Mo Salah too, man. You can tell with his dancing that he's happy about this. The second place spot though is everything to fight for. I would expect Burkina Faso to probably get it, since they're a pretty high ranked team compared to the others in the group, but so far overall, this group has gone pretty normally. Group B on the other hand, which consists of Senegal, DR Congo, Togo, Sudan, Mauritania, and South Sudan, has been anything but normal. Just from the group, you can tell that this is wild. I mean, Sudan and South Sudan are literally in the same group. I'm no expert in geopolitics or world news or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure Sudan was originally just one, but the southern part broke off after a war and became its own separate thing. Something like that, I'm pretty sure. But these two being in the same group isn't the only crazy thing though. That's because Senegal is not on top of the group, and DR Congo, who are also a rather good team, since they have a lot of good players and just made the semifinals of the recent AFCON after all, aren't on top either. The team that's on top of the group right now is actually Sudan. Yeah, you heard me correct. They're currently ahead of Senegal by 2 points in first place, and they're also still yet to be beaten in the qualifiers. Additionally, in the game so far, they drew to Togo 1-1, an African side that has made the World Cup before, beat DR Congo 1-0, a recent AFCON semi-finalist as I mentioned previously, beat Mauritania, who also qualified for AFCON 2-0 away from home, and then away to South Sudan, they spanked their geopolitical rivals 3-0. You best believe that game was heated to the max. Those two countries really don't like each other. And what's even crazier about Sudan being first right now is, like I said, I ain't no expert, but I'm pretty sure Sudan is currently having another civil war in their country right now. So for them to qualify for the World Cup through an automatic spot would be nothing short of an extraordinary achievement. And not gonna lie, I'd be a huge fan of seeing this happen. And right now, even though I know they have yet to play Senegal, who like I said are 2 points below them due to draws against DR Congo and Togo, but if Sudan still somehow sends Senegal to the playoffs and qualifies for the World Cup automatically in their place, that would be one of the biggest World Cup qualifying upsets and one of the best qualifying stories in World Cup history.
We'll be there. We will be there. We'll be there.
But if you thought Group B was crazy, nah. Group C gets even crazier. In this group, you'll find Nigeria, South Africa, Benin, Zimbabwe, Rwanda, and Lesotho. Now, some of you might assume that Nigeria is probably running away with the group, or at least are on top of it to book their ticket to the World Cup. After all, it's Nigeria, bruh. They've qualified for 6 out of the last 8 World Cups. They literally just recently made it to the AFCON final, where they lost to the host nation Ivory Coast in the final 2-1, and they've got some great players, like Alex Iwobi, Ademola Lookman, Victor Osimhen, etc. Surely they're on top of the group, right? Right? Well, you'd be wrong. In fact, they're nowhere near first. Instead, they're all the way down at 5th. Yeah, it's not looking good for Nigeria, bruh.
Big man thing, yeah? It's not looking good, bruv. It's not looking good.
Not gonna lie, it probably would be more realistic if you take this group and flip it upside down. That seems more realistic on how the group should look. But African football is nowhere near realistic. It's the most unpredictable form of the sport, I swear. Like, bruh, how the hell is Rwanda on top of the group? Anyways, the reason why Nigeria have put themselves in almost an impossible situation to get out of is because they drew 1-1 to Lesotho in the opening game. While keep in mind, somehow Lesotho turned into a decent national team while being a country inside of another country, bro. They're literally completely surrounded by South Africa. But anyways, Nigeria somehow then drew to Zimbabwe in the next game, drew to South Africa in the game after that, meaning they got 3 draws in their first 3 games. And then they lost to Benin 2-1 in their most recent match. Bruh, the AFCON finalists lost to Benin. Not gonna lie, I don't even know if 80% of America, if that, even knows that Benin is a country. So the fact that Nigeria lost to them is simply just wild. No cap, I don't even think I can name a single Benin player either, or anything about Benin in all honesty. But Nigeria, bro, what's going on? How did you guys become so shit recently? Let's now speak about the other teams in this group. And why don't we start by talking about the group leaders first, Rwanda. Now, I don't know too much about Rwanda, besides their very dark past and the fact that they got Hotel Rwanda. But somehow, in some way, they've got a national team that's genuinely fighting for an automatic qualification spot for the World Cup. They drew to Zimbabwe in the first game, but then in the second game, against the only African World Cup host in history, South Africa, they beat them 2-0. And then despite losing to Benin in the next game 1-0, damn, Benin low-key going crazy. They ended up beating Lesotho 1-0 in their most recent game of qualifying, taking the top spot from Lesotho and claiming it for themselves. And speaking now about Lesotho, they've been doing really good too. Unlike Nigeria and Rwanda, they didn't lose to Benin and actually drew with them 0-0. And then they also beat Zimbabwe 2-0. Zimbabwe is basically the punching bag of the group, I can't lie. But shout out to South Africa though. Even though it was looking rough for them in the beginning, their 3-1 win over Zimbabwe does bring them back to a potential World Cup spot. But overall, this group is just so unpredictable and super tight as well. Despite Rwanda being on top, it's because of goal difference. And Rwanda, South Africa, and Benin are all tied on 7 points, while Lesotho is right behind them with 5 points. Nigeria though, and Zimbabwe, yeah, there's not really a need to speak about them, bro. Let's just move on.
That wasn't very nice.
Going over to Group D, we got the likes of Cameroon, Cape Verde, Angola, Libya, Mauritius, and Eswatini. And this group might seem a little more normal on the surface, with the clear favorites Cameroon being on top of the group, but this group is still slightly crazy. Because if you look closely, if Cameroon drop points, Libya, Cape Verde, and Angola are all in touching distance, with Mauritius not being too far behind. Eswatini though, not gonna lie, they're just here for the vibes. And I'm gonna be so real with y'all right now, I really didn't know Eswatini was an actual country before I was making this video. And I consider myself above average when it comes to world geography. But for some reason, I've never heard of this country before. Doesn't matter though, I don't think they're gonna get a single point in this group, respectfully. Especially when the other teams are hot right now. Cameroon are undefeated right now, and I've beaten the likes of Mauritius 3-0, Cape Verde, a team who made to the AFCON knockout stages by the way, 4-1, and they drew to Angola and Libya, who are also relatively good teams. I mean, Angola literally made to the knockout stages of the last AFCON too. Libya for me is definitely the most surprising though, because they didn't even make it to the last AFCON, but they beat Eswatini 1-0, drew to Cameroon 1-1 like I said, beat Mauritius 2-1, and just barely lost to Cape Verde 1-0 in their most recent game. But if I'm gonna keep it real, if I'm picking a country from this group to make the World Cup that's not Cameroon, I'm gonna have to go for Cape Verde, man. And my reasons have nothing to do with football. If you watch AFCON, you would know what I'm talking about. Overall, it's an interesting group and it's something to keep an eye on. Now let's move on to Group B, where we got Morocco, Tanzania, Zambia, Congo, Niger, and Eritrea. And if you look at the group stage right now, it looks pretty normal, with Morocco topping the group and winning every single game, as you would expect from a World Cup semi-finalist, and the other teams just being below them. Maybe you would expect Zambia to be a little bit higher. After all, they did win AFCON around like 13 years ago, but when you see that they lost to Niger 2-1, it makes sense why they're not doing so well. But besides that, it's a pretty normal group, until you realize that I was hiding something from you. And it's the fact that Eritrea are not even in the group anymore. And to be more specific, they withdrew. So why did Eritrea withdraw when they made it to this Africa World Cup qualifying stage for the first time in forever? Well, that's because Eritrea's football federation withdrew the men's team from qualifying due to fears of the players attempting to flee the country when they get the chance. Yeah, that's crazy. The federation has yet to comment, but the national team was preparing for this moment for like 3 months before their opening game, before they had to withdraw from the qualifying process. And this fear of Eritrea players fleeing is based in reality, because 7 Eritrean players before fled in Uganda after helping their country reach the CONCACAF Cup final, and then 4 under 20 players fled when they had to play Zanzibar, which is a part of Tanzania. So with players fleeing in the past, Eritrea's federation decided, you know what, this World Cup doesn't mean shit for our people, and they canceled everything.
Boy, ain't no way, boy. Boy, ain't no way, boy. Boy, ain't no way, boy.
But besides this Eritrea drama, and the fact that Niger are in second place in the group right now because they beat Zambia 2-1, it's overall a normal group. And I fully expect Morocco to automatically qualify for the World Cup. And whoever gets second place, yeah, they're probably not going to make it, let's be honest.
Oh, that was uncalled for.
Moving on to Group F, we got Ivory Coast, Gabon, Kenya, Burundi, Gambia, and Seychelles. Shout out to Seychelles, man. It seems like a great vacation spot for a honeymoon. I need to go there and visit for real. I just gotta find a wife first. fuck, man. That shit is never happening. Anyway, speaking about Seychelles, they literally have a negative 20 goal difference. Who invited these guys in the first place, man? They're just out here trying to gain some more tourism for real. You gotta respect the hustle. Anyways, for the most part, this group seems pretty normal. I mean, I don't know how they've done it, but Ivory Coast have finally got their shit together after winning AFCON, despite firing their manager midway through the tournament and finishing third in their group before going on to win it. And with them figuring their stuff out, they're currently on top of the group, with Gabon in second, which is to be expected, because of course, they got some good players like Mario Lemina and of course, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I did kind of expect a little better from Gambia though. They're not that good, but they did qualify for AFCON after all. But right now, they're 5th place in the group. And also, I expected a little bit better from Kenya. Not that I know anything about them football-wise, but they have a huge Indian population, bro. I was trying to see them do well because of that. I feel connected to them in a way. But let's be honest, Ivory Coast is probably taking that automatic spot to the World Cup, while Gabon will probably finish the second. After all, Ivory Coast did beat Gabon 1-0, so I don't think Gabon will have what it takes to overtake Ivory Coast in the table. Quick shout out to Burundi though as well. Despite all their problems right now, they are putting up a tough fight. Let's now move on to Group G, where we got Algeria, Mozambique, Guinea, Uganda, Botswana, and Somalia. Damn, Somalia made this round of World Cup qualifying? Impressive. Anyways, this group is kind of crazy. Don't be fooled by the table with Algeria topping it. Everybody is seriously close. I mean, besides the top 2 have 9 points, everybody else has 6 points. Well, expect Somalia. Their players be ball hogging too much, and that's why they be losing every single game. But anyways, if you take a closer look at the group, you will see that for once, the team on top of the group, Algeria, isn't undefeated. In fact, they lost to Guinea 2-1 on the third match day. And this is the same Guinea side that lost to Botswana 1-0 in the same World Cup qualifying campaign. And Botswana and Guinea both lost to Mozambique too, with Botswana losing 3-2 and Guinea losing 1-0 most recently due to a last minute penalty. So literally in this group, anybody could beat anybody. Yes, Algeria are definitely the favorites to top the group, and rightfully so, with Guinea as probably the second favorites, even though they're not second right now. But with Algeria slowly losing their top players, like Riyad Mahrez for example, who's only getting older, and with them failing miserably at the previous 2 AFCONs and even the last World Cup qualifying, where they failed to clinch their spot against Cameroon in the last minute, you never know with this group, man. Anything can happen. Like, I really wouldn't be surprised if Guinea somehow came through and topped the group somehow, or someone completely unexpected, like Mozambique, who's literally tied with the same amount of points as top spot Algeria. But this group, man, like I said, anything can happen. Everybody's beating up on each other in this battle royale because somehow have an unexpected country book an automatic ticket to the World Cup. But regardless of what happens,
We'll be there. We will be there. We'll be there.
moving on to Group H, we got Tunisia, the favorites, then Namibia, Liberia, Malawi, Equatorial Guinea, and Sao Tome and Principe. I swear, bro, there's always just one country in each of these groups that's just here for vibes. And this time it's Sao Tome and Principe, who literally have 0 points so far and a negative 9 goal difference. Yeah, they ain't gonna do anything in this group. But besides them, everything else is pretty damn close. I know what y'all might be thinking though. How the hell is Equatorial Guinea so low and only have 3 points? They literally played pretty well at the last 2 AFCONs and even destroyed the eventual champions Ivory Coast 4-0 in the group stages. Well, here's the problem. Equatorial Guinea's main man and captain, Emilio Nsue, who is comfortably their best player as I mentioned, was recently hit with a 6-month football ban by FIFA because he has been recorded as ineligible for his entire 11-year international career with Equatorial Guinea. Basically, back in 2013, Emilio Nsue played for Equatorial Guinea after playing competitive games for Spain's youth side, the country he was born and raised in. Usually that isn't a problem, because this sort of stuff is allowed if you file a one-time switch and are generally connected to the other country. But in this instance, it seemed like Emilio Nsue played in an official competition for Equatorial Guinea before he acquired Equatorial Guinean nationality, making him ineligible. And because of this, FIFA decided to uphold the ban like 11 years later for some reason, and punish Equatorial Guinea. So despite Equatorial Guinea beating Namibia and Liberia 1-0 each, with Nsue scoring both of those goals, they were forced to forfeit those games, and those 2 countries got rewarded with 3-0 victories instead, which is why Equatorial Guinea are so low on the table, and it's probably why they won't make the World Cup, especially because they have to play without their star man now. But this ban does give hope to 2 other countries in this group, Liberia, who have had a rough recent history for everything outside of football, and they also have a president who is a former Ballon d'Or winner, George Weah, whose son also plays football and plays for the United States, and Namibia, who's literally nothing but a desert and are still somehow very much in contention of qualifying to the next World Cup, or at the very least, making it to the next round. Literally, whenever I think of Namibia, I just think of that one Bollywood song that was filmed in the desert. That shit slaps though, don't get it twisted. But Tunisia is on top of the group, as expected, and they'll probably make the World Cup. But I would love to see Namibia or Liberia go far in the qualifying process, and potentially book their ticket to the States. I think Namibia's probably got the better chance though, considering the fact that they made it to the AFCON knockout stages in the very recent tournament. Now to wrap up the African World Cup qualifying section, we got Group I, which consists of Ghana, Madagascar, Mali, Comoros, Central African Republic, and Chad. Shout out Chad, man. I love the country's name. Now this group was also quite crazy, and that's because Ghana, a very well-respected African side who made the World Cup quarterfinals back in 2010 and qualified for the World Cup over Nigeria in 2022, is currently not on top of the group. Instead, it's Comoros out of all teams, bruh, that's currently on top. Comoros, bruh, how is this possible? I don't even think 90% of the American population knows this country exists. Regardless of that though, Comoros definitely deserves that top spot for now. They beat the Central African Republic in the opening game very convincingly 4-2. And by the way, Central African Republic, sometimes referred to as their abbreviations, CAR, vroom vroom bitch, it's a pretty okay side. Y'all remember Kondogbia? He played for some good European clubs. And yeah, he plays for this country. So you know this is a pretty impressive win for Comoros. Then in the next game, to everybody's surprise, they beat Ghana 1-0, which plays a role in why Comoros are currently on top. Now Ghana have not been too convincing. Despite being the pot 2 team that was drawn into this group, with Mali being the pot 1 team, we'll get to them though, Ghana barely survived an early scare against Madagascar, with Iñaki Williams scoring in the 9+6 minute to get them to 3 points. So the signs were there, but the red alarm bells were put on full display when they lost to Comoros. Eventually though, it seemed like Ghana are slowly getting their stuff together. I mean, they did get a last minute winner against Mali to beat them away from home 2-1, but beating the pot 1 side is impressive nevertheless. And then against Central African Republic, despite going a goal down in the match, Ghana came through and beat them 4-3 in what was a very thrilling game. So although Ghana has kind of gone back to winning ways, after a disappointing start to qualifying and a terrible AFCON where they failed to make it out of their group, they're getting the wins right now and that's what matters. But they're cutting it way too close, so don't be too surprised if they somehow fumble it later on in the qualifying process. But back to Comoros, after beating Ghana, they somehow lost to Madagascar 2-1, bro. How? What is going on in African qualifying? These guys lost to animals in the Pixar movie. What the hell?
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
After that, Comoros did bounce back and beat Chad 2-0 to top the group. But anyways though, enough about Comoros. Let's speak about Mali. Statistically, meaning according to the FIFA rankings, they're the best national team to never qualify for the World Cup. They're like 20 places in the rankings above the next team too, which just shows that this isn't close whatsoever. Mali should be making it to the World Cup eventually, especially when you have players playing in top European leagues, like Kamori Doumbia and Sissoko over in France, and Bissouma of course, over in England with Tana. For crying out loud, bro, they're literally the pot 1 team in this group. But even then, thanks to bad results against the Central African Republic, where they drew 1-1, losing to Ghana 2-1, and drawing to Madagascar 0-0, they're 4th place in the group and are 4 points away from the top 2, meaning it's not looking likely that they'll make the World Cup and break their no World Cup streak. I can't believe Mali are gonna fumble this amazing opportunity. That is tough.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
But overall, this group is kind of like a battle royale too. Best believe I'm gonna keep my eye on this. And honestly, all of Africa World Cup qualifying, because this is gonna be a mad entertaining build up to the World Cup. And if y'all are interested, and if this video does well, I can keep you guys updated throughout the process. Now it's finally time to move on to Asia's World Cup qualifying games. And let me tell you, these are probably equally as interesting, if not more, compared to Africa's qualifiers. So grab some popcorn, because this is about to get juicy. But before we get on with that, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it, and it means a lot, so thank you. And also, if you guys can, follow my Twitter and my Instagram, both at Nabuto, if you just want to hear my thoughts on football games, transfers, and overall, just to get to know me more. So if you want to, feel free to hit me up with that follow. Thank you. Let's now start off with the second round of AFC's World Cup qualifying, before we preview the third round, which by the way, will be absolutely insane. So the way the second round works is basically the top 2 teams in each 4-country group will qualify for the third round of World Cup qualifying. It's really that simple. Anyways, beginning with Group A, we got Qatar, India, Kuwait, and Afghanistan. My country, India, is in this one. And let's just say that it didn't go well. Now Qatar absolutely steamrolled through this group, as they should. I mean, they are the recent back-to-back AFC Cup winners, so they better be topping this group. But they did so in good fashion. In fact, they literally won every single game except drew 1 time against Afghanistan on the second to last match day, which is kind of surprising without context. But to provide some context, Qatar used their B team for the last international window of the second round of qualifying, which is why Afghanistan got that draw. But still, big up to the Afghanis, because getting a draw when you're massive underdogs is impressive nevertheless. Now with that settled, second place was all up for grabs. And in fact, some would even say that India were the favorites to get second place. After all, in recent history before World Cup qualifiers, India were beating Kuwait in their games, and even on the first match day, India went to Kuwait and beat them 1-0, starting off their qualifying campaign hot. But eventually, Kuwait did something that India couldn't do, and that was not losing to Afghanistan at home. In fact, they literally beat them 1-0 on the last match day. But yeah, you heard me correctly. In a must-win game, in a game that everybody thought we would win, we somehow lost to Afghanistan 2-1 despite going 1-0 up thanks to Sunil Chhetri, the biggest legend of Indian football. Oh, and also, these World Cup qualifiers was the last time Chhetri was going to play with India, with him retiring from international duty after this. So, well done India. Y'all ended Chhetri's last few games in disgrace. But after that terrible result, there was still some hope for India. If India just managed not to lose to Qatar on the last match day and Kuwait doesn't beat Afghanistan, we would have still made it to the next round. However, we did get robbed. Despite going 1-0 up in the first half against Qatar away from home, and what looked like maybe the biggest win in India's history, an absolute robbery occurred, where the ball went out but the refs didn't call it, and Qatar scored a goal off of that to ruin India's chances. Then they scored in the 85th minute to truly end India off, and with Kuwait winning, India finished third in the group and didn't make it to the next round of qualifying.
Let's go. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2.
And yeah, we did get robbed, but the reason we were in this position in the first place was because we lost to Afghanistan at home. I've had enough, man. Start allowing dual nationals to play for India, bro. And don't make them give up their original passports either, because bro, ain't nobody gonna do that. The national team would also be way better with dual nationals too. But enough with this Group A rant. It's time to move on to Group B, where we had Japan, Syria, North Korea, and Myanmar. What is this group, bro? A preview of World War III or some shit? But anyways, this group played out very interestingly. Obviously, Japan topped the group. They're one of the best teams in Asia. But what makes this even more impressive is they topped the group by winning 6 out of the 6 games, getting the maximum of 18 points. They obliterated Syria and Myanmar whenever they played each other too, with Japan beating Myanmar 5-0 and 4-1, and then beating Syria 5-0 both times. The Japanese were not playing games. However, when it came to playing against North Korea, it was definitely more difficult, especially because in the only game that they played against each other, I'll get to that, Japan only beat North Korea 1-0 in Tokyo, thanks to a second-minute goal from Ao Tanaka. But when Japan had to play North Korea away from home, North Korea just forfeited the game, and Japan got the 3-0 result. So we're never gonna know how this game actually would have played out, especially because North Korea, although very mysterious, are not a bad national team, and throughout history, they haven't been bad either. They have participated in 2 World Cups, beating Italy in 1966 and taking Brazil all the way to the end in their 2-1 loss in 2010. So they know what it takes to make it to the World Cup, especially when they have good players like Han Kwok-sung, an ex-Cagliari and Juventus striker who mysteriously disappeared for 3 years before popping back up at these World Cup qualifiers. If you want to know more about his story, check out the video I made on it. You'll definitely enjoy it. Regardless, North Korea is a good team, so I would have loved seeing Japan play them away and seeing what would happen. But due to North Korean officials saying that there was some infectious disease that burst out in Japan and didn't want the Japanese players to enter Pyongyang, FIFA had to step in and give Japan the 3-0 win.
Are you serious right now, bro?
And this put North Korea in jeopardy of making it to the next round, because Syria were right behind them, especially because Syria beat North Korea 1-0 in the first game of qualifying before North Korea got revenge in the second leg, beating them 1-0 in the 90+2nd minute. But thanks to Japan destroying Syria and North Korea beating Myanmar 4-1, North Korea made it through in second and Japan in first. But oh my, I'm not gonna lie, I would love to see North Korea at this World Cup. Imagine the opening game being the US versus North Korea. That literally might be the most watched World Cup game of all time. Anyways, that's enough of Group B. Let's move over to Group C, where we got South Korea, China, Thailand, and Singapore. Now this should have been a straightforward group, with South Korea topping it as expected and Singapore definitely finishing bottom. And truth be told, Singapore are not that good. But the battle between China and Thailand was going to be very interesting, since both of them were very capable of moving through to the next round. And in their head-to-head games, China actually had the advantage over Thailand, which ended up being pretty important, because in the games they faced each other, China beat Thailand in Bangkok 2-1, and then drew to Thailand 1-1 back at home. So how the hell did China and Thailand end up on equal points when China never lost to Thailand? Because somehow, China, a country with a limited amount of riches and a population of 1 billion people, drew to Singapore 2-2. In fact, this was Singapore's only point in the second round of Asian World Cup qualifying. But anyways, with that happening, it looked like Thailand were going to make it to the next round of World Cup qualifying, because in the last round of games of Group C, China had to play South Korea and Thailand had to beat Singapore. And all Thailand had to do to make it through was to beat Singapore by 3 goals, and China had to lose to South Korea with any scoreline. Now the last part happened because South Korea ended up beating China 1-0. Now China are praying for a miracle to survive here, or else they would have suffered another embarrassment in terms of football. And it wasn't looking good initially for the Chinese, because the Thai wonder kid, Suphana Muenta, who plays in the Belgian League by the way, scored Thailand's first goal, and all they had to do was score 2 more and they're through. But then in the 57th minute, a miracle happened, and Singapore scored a goal to level up the match, scoring their 5th goal of the second round of World Cup qualifying. And what a moment to get it, because this meant that Thailand was reset and they needed 3 more goals. They started to lock in towards the ending stages of the game, and they got 2 goals back, one in the 79th minute and one in the 86th minute to go 3-1 up. All they needed was 1 more goal, but even with 35 shots and 13 on target, Thailand couldn't get another goal, which meant that through the skin of their teeth, China made it through on head-to-head points, which meant that due to China's victory over Thailand earlier, they were the ones that finished second place in the group and made it through, despite every single table stat line being even. Really heartbreaking stuff for Thailand, man. This could have been their chance, but hey, China got the business done somehow. Well, Singapore got the business done, especially their goalkeeper, Hassan Suni, the 40-year-old, who made 10 saves in the game. And with his world-class performance from him, the Chinese fans wanted to thank him. And how do they do that? Well, Hassan Suni owns a restaurant, so the Chinese fans went to his restaurant, bought a shit ton of his food, and gave him great ratings because of his great goalkeeper masterclass. This is what I love about football, man. Stories like these. You don't really get moments like this when it comes to big clubs or big national teams. But when it comes to things like this is why I love World Cup qualifying. And oh, shout out to Zealand. Would have never found out about the story if it wasn't for him. Now I'm not gonna lie, for the rest of the Asian World Cup qualifying groups, pretty much all the favorites, except maybe like one, which we'll get to, sorry Max, made it through. Starting off with Group D, which contained the likes of Oman, Malaysia, Chinese Taipei, and Kyrgyzstan. Oman topped the group as expected, but then in somewhat of a surprise, Kyrgyzstan finished in second place by only 1 point compared to Malaysia. Really unlucky for Malaysia, man. man. Because despite beating Kyrgyzstan 4-3 and then joining them 1-1, meaning that they never lost to them, they still finished below because Oman drew to Kyrgyzstan on the last match day. And this cruel fate is why Malaysia didn't make it to the next round of World Cup qualifying. Sorry to all the Malaysians out there, bro. It's a cold world.
It's an evil world we live in.
Now for Group B, I mean, do I really need to say much? Iran and Uzbekistan were clearly the two best teams, and they absolutely steamrolled Turkmenistan and Hong Kong in this group and made it through. Then in Group F, we're back with the juiciness. We had a group with Iraq, Indonesia, Vietnam, and the Philippines. Now Iraq are a national team that's on a huge come up right now, and if it wasn't for some dodgy decisions in their Asian Cup game against Jordan, I felt like they could have won their second Asian Cup ever. They're that good. After all, they did beat Japan 2-1 in the group stages as well, and they showed how good they were in qualifying too, with them winning 6 out of the 6 games they played, getting a maximum of 18 points. But the fight for top spot is what nobody was interested in. Nope, because if you follow Asian football even a small amount, you would know that Iraq were the clear favorites to top the group, which is exactly what they did. The matchup that we all wanted to see from this group though was Indonesia versus Vietnam. Sorry Philippines, y'all just aren't relevant in this conversation right now. Irrelevant! Now for those of you who are unaware, Vietnam and Indonesia are huge rivals of each other. They hate each other a ton, and before this year, Vietnam have low-key been the better national team, and they seem to be on the come up. But ever since the Asian Cup that happened in January 2024, where Indonesia made it to the knockout stages and Vietnam didn't, the tides started to change. Because although some say Vietnam had a favorable chance of making it through, Indonesia halted those thoughts and slapped up those rivals twice. Once 1-0 at home, and then they absolutely cream pie Vietnam 3-0 away from home.
Anyways,
Tough for Vietnam, but Indonesia definitely deserved that second place spot. Sorry Max, I had to say it. Let's now move on to Group G, where we have Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Tajikistan, and Pakistan. And this group played out like it should have. Other than the fact that Jordan finished above Saudi Arabia on the table, everything went according to plan. And even that isn't too big of a deal, because you still make it through to the third round in second place. And Jordan only secured first place because of goal difference. But Jordan are also a pretty decent national team nowadays, man. They made it to the Asian Cup final after all. They're not to be messed with. And with Saudi and their never-ending cash that is being funneled towards football development, you know these guys are going to be better than average for years to come. Tough luck for Tajikistan though, because despite having a great Asian Cup campaign where they made it to the quarterfinals after beating UAE on penalties in the round 16, they were put in a tough group, and that cost them a World Cup spot. But don't sleep on them, because they're on the come up still. Pakistan on the other hand... Now over to Group H, I mean it went as expected. UAE topped the group with ease, finishing undefeated, and Bahrain came in second, due to the worser opposition in this group, with Yemen and Nepal being in it. And now over to Group I. We had Australia finishing on top as expected, but then Palestine finishing in second, Lebanon in third, and Bangladesh in fourth. Shout out to Palestine, man. With everything sad that's happening to them in the world, they're still putting on a show for us and their people with football. They had a great Asian Cup campaign, bringing smiles to Palestinian faces, and now they have a chance of making it to the World Cup. And if they manage to make it, that definitely would be one of the greatest achievements in World Cup qualifying history. This is why I love these qualifiers, man. There's so many good storylines for real. But with that being said, that was the second round of Asian World Cup qualifying. Now the third round hasn't commenced yet, but when it does, it's gonna be insane. In this, there's 3 groups of 6, and whoever finishes in the top 2 in their group will book an automatic spot to the World Cup. The third and fourth place though will be put into the 4th round, where they'll be put into groups of 3, and if you top that group, you can also make it to the World Cup. But not to worry, because if you finish second place, there's still a chance that you can make it to the 5th round, where you have to play the other runner-up, and whoever wins that will make it. I love this new format of Asian World Cup qualifying, I'm not gonna lie. It just makes things so much more interesting. But anyways, for the third round of qualifying, here are the groups. Group A consists of Iran, Qatar, Uzbekistan, United Arab Emirates, Kyrgyzstan, and North Korea. Honestly, besides Kyrgyzstan, with all due respect, any of these teams could qualify for the World Cup, with Iran and Qatar undoubtedly being the favorites to do so. But don't sleep on the UAE, Uzbekistan, or North Korea. They're all good sides. I personally want to see North Korea make it, just because of the chance of them being grouped with the USA would just be so funny. I wish that would happen. So yeah, I guess you could say I'm a North Korea fan.
What did he say?
Wait, no, don't take that out of context, please. Moving on, Group C is pretty interesting too. We got South Korea, Iraq, Jordan, Oman, Palestine, and Kuwait. With all due respect, I don't think Kuwait stands much of a chance. It should have been India instead. And maybe even Oman doesn't stand too much of a chance either. Hopefully Palestine comes through though. I mean, I'm definitely going to root for them. But when you have the Asian Cup finalists in Jordan, South Korea, who are very good and talented, and then Iraq, who's on a major come up right now, it's going to be difficult. But best believe I got my eyes peeled on this group. This one will be a good one. And so will Group C, where we have Japan, Australia, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, China, and Indonesia. And to be honest, there's a huge discrepancy between the top 3 and the bottom 3. Japan, Australia, and Saudi Arabia will be fighting for 2 automatic spots, while the other 3, yeah, they might as well not show up, to be honest. Knowing China though, they'll probably somehow fumble that 4th spot position that they should be getting. But we'll see what happens. But overall, that's Asia's World Cup qualifying. Let's now finally talk about CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying next. And fun fact, the South American Federation were the first ones to start their World Cup qualifying cycle, because their format is literally the longest. It's literally just one gigantic group, and the top 6 teams make it to the World Cup, while the 7th team goes on to the Interconfederation playoffs. Now most most of the World Cup qualifying in South America has gone as you expected, except one insane thing, but we'll get to that. For stars though, Argentina is probably the best national team in the world right now. After all, they are the recent World Cup champions and just won back-to-back Copa Americas, so them being on top of the qualifying group is no surprise. They did end up losing one game to Uruguay 2-0 in Argentina, but shit happens. That loss isn't really going to affect them in the long run. Going to Uruguay, they're in second place, with also only one loss, and that one loss actually happened in a game against Ecuador away from home. But besides that, they're doing really well, and they'll definitely make it to the World Cup. They also just got their place at the Copa America, so they're in form right now. And so are Colombia, who are third place in World Cup qualifier right now, and they're actually the only national team that's undefeated too. In fact, they had a 28-game undefeated streak that stretched across 2 years, but it recently ended in the Copa America final, where they lost to Argentina 1-0. They have also yet to play Argentina during the qualifiers as well, so let's see what happens when these two sides face each other in qualifying. But Colombia seem to be on the right track to bounce back from their failure of not qualifying to the 2022 World Cup that happened a few years ago. Then the first mini surprise is the fact that Venezuela is actually in the top 6 of this group, and they're looking on course to qualify. Fun fact, Venezuela is the only national team in South America that has never played at a World Cup before, so that making it would mean the world for all the Venezuelan people out there. They beat decent teams to be in this position too. They won against Paraguay through a last minute penalty and secured the 1-0 W. They then drew to Brazil 1-1 thanks to an 85th minute equalizer. They slapped the hell out of Chile 3-0, drew to Ecuador 0-0, and then drew to Peru 1-1. So they're doing pretty good. Let's see if they can keep this pace up. They even topped their pretty even Copa America group too. But let's not talk about their quarterfinal game against Canada though. That penalty shootout was kind of embarrassing. And then in 5th, there's Ecuador, who are on the right path to qualifying for back-to-back World Cups. And with them having somewhat of a golden generation coming through right now, it only makes sense. But you might have noticed that I haven't mentioned a specific country yet. The 5-time World Cup champions Brazil. Where the hell are they? Well, they're actually in 6th place, only one spot above a non-automatic qualifying spot to the World Cup. So what the hell is going on with them? Well, despite slapping up Bolivia 5-1 on the first match day and beating Peru 1-0 on the second match day, they've been pretty underwhelming. They drew 1-1 to Venezuela, as I mentioned earlier, lost to Uruguay 2-0, lost to Colombia 2-1 despite having a 1-0 lead in the game, and then lost to Argentina at home in the Maracanã 1-0. Really disappointing stuff from Brazil. And they didn't even look that good at Copa America to show the fans that positive times are ahead. They literally got knocked out in the quarters. And even though they have world-class players on their team, like Vinicius and Rodrigo, they don't usually show up for the national team somehow. There is good news for Brazil though, and that's their star boy, Neymar, is coming back from that devastating ACL injury. And I'm sure with him being the main player, he'll put Brazil on his back and carry them to the World Cup in the United States. I'm sure of it. Let's now finally move up to North America, where we have the CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers, the region where my national team, the United States, plays in. But this World Cup qualifying in the CONCACAF region is going to be a little more different and unusual this time. Why? Well, that's because the World Cup is being hosted in this region. In fact, in 3 countries, the United States mainly, but also Mexico and Canada, which means that the USA, Mexico, and Canada, the 3 biggest national teams in the region right now, are already automatically qualified for the World Cup and won't be participating in the qualifiers, which means there's some spots that are opened up for nations, and they now have a good chance to play at one if they do well in this qualifying cycle, of course. Now, CONCACAF are currently in the middle of the second round of World Cup qualifying, and no team will be clinching a World Cup ticket in this round. But if you finish in the top 2 of a group of 5, you will be booking your ticket to the third and final round, where you can then qualify automatically for the tournament. Let's start off with Group A, where we've got Honduras, Cuba, Antigua and Barbuda, Bermuda, and the Cayman Islands. Now, I'm very aware that maybe 50% of you guys haven't heard of 3 countries in this group before, but that's why World Cup qualifying is awesome. You get to see teams like Bermuda and Cayman Islands, etc., playing in some meaningful matches. Now, as expected, Honduras is on top of the group. I mean, no surprise there. They're literally the best team in this group.
Boring.
But the rest is a free-for-all, including Cuba, because the only reason why they're currently second place is because of America's tourism ban in the country. Let me explain. So the Cayman Islands were actually starting off their World Cup qualifying campaign hot. I know, it's crazy. And they beat Antigua and Barbuda 1-0 thanks to a 90+ first minute goal from Campo, a man who doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. But when the Cayman Islands were trying to make it 2 wins out of 2 games, they realized they had a problem. They had to play away in Cuba. That's the problem. Basically, the Cayman Islands currently has a lot of students on their World Cup qualifying squad, with a lot of them having US visas. But with America having a ban on traveling to Cuba for all their citizens, unless you get very special and rare permission, these students on the Cayman Islands team did not want to risk them losing their visas that allowed them to stay in the US. So the Cayman Islands simply didn't show up, and Cuba got all 3 points. I guess Cuba getting a travel ban from the US does provide some benefits. Next, let's go over to Group B, where we got Costa Rica currently on top of the group. As expected, they're the best team in there. And then we got Trinidad and Tobago in 2nd, St. Kitts and Nevis in 3rd, Grenada in 4th, and Bahamas in 5th. And honestly, this is what you would probably expect. Trinidad is clearly better than the other teams in this group, besides Costa Rica, which is why they're 2nd. And the only shocking thing that happened in this group so far was them drawing Grenada 2-2. And the other shocking thing, I guess, is Bahamas actually scoring a goal against Trinidad and Tobago in their 7-1 loss. But that doesn't really mean too much, because Trinidad probably just stopped caring about the game. Shout out to the Bahamas though, never been there, but I would love to, especially with a girlfriend. Just gotta find one first, you feel me? And shout out to St. Kitts and Nevis. I literally know nothing about this country, apart from the fact that Cole Palmer's granddad is from there, so big up to Mr. Aura himself. time to go over to Group C, where we got Curacao and Haiti tied at the top on points with 6 each, with Curacao leading by goal difference, and then there's St. Lucia, Aruba, and Barbados. I know nothing about the other 3, and it's likely not gonna matter, because there's no way those 3 countries are making it to the next round of World Cup qualifying, with all due respect. But shout out to Barbados. That Lomax song called that was fire. Then there's Group D, where Nicaragua and Panama are tied on points on top, which will probably stay there for the entirety of the second round, and so will Guatemala and Jamaica in Group E, who are also in the top 2 of the group. But don't sleep on the Dominican Republic. They recently just qualified for the Olympics football out of nowhere, and they're also right now recruiting a ton of dual nationals. They already secured Junior Firpo from Leeds, who I'm sure will play a big part for them in qualifying, and maybe some others will come too. And no, shout out to the British Virgin Islands. They somehow made it this far. You gotta respect it. Over to Group F though, we do kind of have something shocking, and that's because we got Suriname and Puerto Rico in the first 2 places as of right now, and El Salvador are in 3rd and could be knocked out of World Cup qualifying just in the second round. There's also St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Anguilla, but let's be honest, they're not gonna be a threat. So Suriname being at the top isn't a surprise. They're clearly the best team on paper in this group. But El Salvador being 3rd and Puerto Rico being a 2nd is kind of shocking, especially because at home in El Salvador, they couldn't even beat Puerto Rico and ended up drawing 0-0. And then Puerto Rico ran up the score against Anguilla to have the better goal difference as of right now, which is why they're in 2nd. And if they make it to the World Cup, they might be the first non-country technically to make the competition. That would be kind of fire. I'm rooting for them, especially because they got some top talents on their team, like Jermaine De Leon, the left-footed magician, who's currently at Real Madrid and was on their squad as they won the Champions League against Dortmund 2-0. Also, some of the reggaeton artists I listen to are from Puerto Rico, like Bad Bunny and Raul Alejandro. And with them dropping some fire on the regular, I would love to see what they would drop if Puerto Rico makes the World Cup. So vamos Puerto Rico, make this happen. And that's kind of it for CONCACAF World Cup qualifying as of right now. The next time we get an update though in this region will be in June 2025. So it'll be a while before I drop any updates in CONCACAF. Now with that section wrapped up, what about Europe's or Oceania's World Cup qualifying campaigns? Well, they haven't started yet. UEFA was more focused on Euro 2024 qualifiers and the tournament itself, while Oceania, yeah, Loki don't know why they haven't started yet, but let's be honest, we all know that New Zealand is going to take that only qualifying spot to the World Cup. There's not really going to be much more to say about that. World Cup 2026 qualifying resumed in the September international window for Asia and South America, and some absolutely insane results happened. Back-to-back Asia Cup champions Qatar are winless in their first 2 games, so are Australia, who dropped points to some relatively easier opponents. China have 0 points with a -8 goal difference. Well, to be honest, that isn't really that surprising. Bolivia are actually in contention to qualify for the World Cup, while Brazil are at risk of not qualifying at all, etc, etc. So as you can see, there have been many insane results and upsets. And with that, let's take a look at everything that happened in the September international window regarding the World Cup 2026 qualifiers. Real quick though, I have now created a second YouTube channel where I'm going to upload a lot more freaking videos about football, so please be a real one and check out the channel and subscribe. I would appreciate it. Okay, back to World Cup qualifying. Let's start off with Group A at the Asian World Cup qualifiers, where we got Qatar, Iran, United Arab Emirates, Uzbekistan, North Korea, and Kyrgyzstan playing for a ticket at the 2026 World Cup. And just a reminder, for every group at Asia's World Cup qualifying 3rd round, the first 2 places in the group get an automatic ticket to the World Cup, while 3rd and 4th place go to the next round of qualifying, and 5th and 6th place will be eliminated. Had to say that part just in case y'all don't remember. Anyways, starting off with the first game of Group A, we had Uzbekistan taking on North Korea at home. And man, this game was closer than what everybody was expecting. If you've been following Asian football, you would know that Uzbekistan's national team is on the rise lately, and they've been killing it in the youth game recently too, with them winning the AFC Under-20 Asian Cup just last year. But North Korea are no pushovers. Nobody knows what sort of training regime they got over there in Pyongyang, but it's working because their national team is actually pretty good. They even developed one of my favorite players, Han Kwang-song, who participated in this game and has experience playing for Cagliari and even Juventus. So North Korea got some ballers too. And I said this before in my previous World Cup qualifying video that did very well. Thank you guys for that, by the way. But I want to see North Korea at the World Cup. I need that USA versus North Korea opening match more than anything. But sadly, this game wasn't one of North Korea's best. And that's because Uzbekistan dominated the match at home, getting most of the chances, and even scoring early on in the 20th minute thanks to a strike from Masharpov. But out of nowhere, and what felt like North Korea's first real chance, they won a penalty and got the chance to equalize the match from the spot. However, number 17, Kuk Chol Kang, stepped up to the spot and had his penalty saved. It should have been Han Kwang-song taking it from the spot, man. But anyways, that was North Korea's best opportunity that wasn't taken advantage of. And with that, Uzbekistan won the game 1-0 to start their 3rd round campaign with 3 points. On to the next game of Group A, we had Iran versus Kyrgyzstan. Now, Iran is definitely one of the biggest Asian powerhouses. I mean, they've qualified for like 3 World Cups in a row now, and even made the semifinals of the last Asian Cup. But right now, it feels like they're going through somewhat of a dark period. Sure, Mehdi Taremi is still a global sensation, with him joining Inter Milan and playing decently well for them so far, but Iran's other superstar, Sardar Azmoun, decided he likes horses more than football and left Europe to join a club in the United Arab Emirates.
this can't be.
But regardless, Iran is still levels ahead of Kyrgyzstan on paper, so they should be able to handle business. Little did they know though, Kyrgyzstan was going to be a much tougher task than they thought. And what surprised me most about the Kyrgyz was not their football ability. No. It's the fact that they have a black man on their team named Joel Kojo. When I found this out, I was in shock. Not that it's a bad thing, by the way, do not get it twisted. I think it's super dope that an immigrant like Joel Kojo, who came from Ghana, is allowed to represent the country that he spent numerous years in for his career. And for that, I have also now become Joel Kojo's biggest fan. That's my guy. Sadly though, he didn't do too much in this game, and the Remis goal in the 34th minute sealed an underwhelming 1-0 victory for the Iranians. 3 points is 3 points though. And now let's move on to the last game of match day 1 in Group A, where we got Qatar playing the United Arab Emirates. Now although Qatar performed extremely poorly at the World Cup they hosted, these guys are currently the kings of Asian football at the moment. Not only did they win the Asian Cup back in 2019, their first one ever, but they went back to back literally just this year and won their second Asian Cup ever after defeating Jordan 3-1 in the final due to 3 penalties.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
The reason why I'm mentioning this though is Qatar is a really good national team in the Asian football scene, and compared to them to the UAE, they've been dominating their Middle Eastern counterparts for over a decade. In fact, in the last 7 matches that they played each other in, Qatar have scored 3 goals or more in 6 out of those 7 games. That's how much Qatar owned the UAE, and it seemed like they were going to continue this in the 3rd round of Asian World Cup qualifying, especially with Qatar playing at home, and also especially with Qatar dominating the first half entirely, creating a ton of chances, and eventually in the 38th minute, Al Hassan gets a goal to make this dominance count and put the Qatar national team 1-0 up heading into halftime. But at halftime, something changed for the UAE national team. Maybe a sheikh promised everybody on the team a Lamborghini or something if they managed to come back, because the UAE came back switched on. It felt like a whole different national team pulled up for the second half. And in the 68th minute, Abdallah displayed incredible skill, sending 2 Qatari defenders to a different country and scored an amazing goal to equalize the match. Then in the 80th minute, after Qatar started slowly getting back in the game, Ibrahim goes on a solo run and blasts one into the top of the net to give his side a shocking 2-1 lead. But oh, that's not it, because in added time, when Qatar were giving it their all to try and get a result from this match, Ali Saleh, the substitute, also hit a ball into the roof of the net to give UAE a 3rd and final goal of the match, and this would give his country an unlikely 3-1 away in Qatar. And with that, the UAE started off this 3rd round of World Cup qualifying with 3 points, and put an end to Qatar's unbeaten run that they had. But the drama in Group A is nowhere near complete, because we still gotta talk about match day 2, and we're gonna start by talking about Qatar again when they had to play North Korea away, but don't worry, they didn't have to go to Pyongyang or anything. The match was actually played in Laos. And does anybody know why North Korea are not playing their home games in Pyongyang? Because I know they wanted to play Japan there, but now it seems like they're still playing in Laos for some reason. If y'all know the answer, just let me know down in the comments. Anyways, regarding this match, I have an agenda for North Korea, like I said. So I wanted North Korea to put up some points on the board, or else I would say that this World Cup dream is Jover.
It's not looking good, bruv. It's not looking good.
But the game started off the exact opposite way than I thought it would. I keep underestimating the North Koreans, damn. Because North Korea started off the better side in this match, generating the better chances. And eventually, this beginning domination would pay off in the 19th minute, and that's thanks to an absolute rocket from Ri Il-sung, who blasted it into the top corner from outside the box to give his country the 1-0 lead. What an amazing strike from the 20-year-old North Korean. However, right when North Korea were in dreamland, Qatar had a counterattack and Almoz Ali ended up getting fouled in the box by Jang Kong-chol, the captain of the team, and he ended up getting sent off for the challenge, and North Korea went down to 10 men. I thought double jeopardy wasn't a thing anymore, where you can't give away a penalty and get a red card at the same time, unless it was like a handball in the line or something like Luis Suarez did back in 2010. But I guess Asia's got different rules or something? I don't really know. Anyways, Akram Afif, the man who scored a hat-trick off penalties in the 2024 Asian Cup final, was never going to miss from the spot, and he equalized for the Qataris in the 31st minute. But things go from bad to worse for the North Koreans, because in the 44th minute, one of the top goal scorers in World Cup qualifying, Almoz Ali, blasts the ball into the top of the net to give his country the 2-1 lead in the game right before halftime. I swear, why does Asian World Cup qualifying only have banger goals? Not a single normal goal in this region, for real. But then in the second half, the rain started pouring hard, and I guess North Korea did better in the rain because they started getting most of the chances. And Kang Kong-chol, damn, all these names are kind of similar, what the hell? Are they all twins or something?
That's gotta be racist. There's no way.
But anyways, Kang Kong-chol will take advantage of playing in the rain, something Qatar ain't used to, which makes sense. After all, they literally live in one of the driest climates ever. They literally are a desert country. But like I was saying, Kang Kong-chol then strikes a free kick from way downtown and somehow managed to hit it top bins and equalize the game 2-2. Bro, like I said, every goal is a banger. And eventually, Qatar weren't able to handle playing on this wet surface, and the 10-man North Korea survived this match against the champions and escaped with a 2-2 draw, getting their first point of the 3rd round of World Cup qualifying, which was a huge win for them, especially with 10 men. And they're not even playing at home technically. They played in Laos only in front of like 140 people. That's wild. Qatar, on the other hand, have been massively disappointing, and maybe their World Cup hopes are in early jeopardy here. But enough about Qatar. It's time to move on to one of the matches of the window in Kyrgyzstan versus Uzbekistan. This match was absolute peak fiction, just like One Piece. If you know, you know. Now this game started off with a bang, and I'm not talking about the match yet. I'm talking about the fact that there was a random Spider-Man in the crowd for Kyrgyzstan. Peter Parker, bro, we need you back in New York. What the hell are you doing over there in Asia? Anyways, now the match did start off with a bang, because in the 15th minute, Joel Kojo, the man himself, gets the ball into the middle of the box box and hits it straight into the back of the net to put his country up 1-0. I told you, man. Joel Kojo, that's my boy. Who's the best player in Kyrgyzstan? Is it Mischenko? Is it Shukurov? Is it Kensabayev? Is it Kozobayev? Is it Zaribekov? No, it's a man named Joel. My goat. But this lead didn't last too long. In fact, it literally lasted less than 2 minutes because the Roma striker, Shomurodov, lets the ball glide past him and put the ball into the back of the net to equalize quickly for the Uzbeks. Oh, but wait. Y'all thought Uzbekistan was just gonna run through Kyrgyzstan now? No. Because in the 35th minute, a man who has like 20 letters in his name, Abdurakhmonov, gets on the end of a loose cross and somehow the ball ended up in the back of the net to give his country a surprising 2-1 lead in the match. Now Kyrgyzstan were doing all they could to keep this lead, but it only lasted 10 minutes, I'm not gonna lie. Because right before halftime in the 45th minute, Ali Kulov scored to equalize the game yet again.
I can't fucking compete! I just can't fucking compete!
Now in my head, I was hoping that Kyrgyzstan could hold on to the lead and maybe escape this game with a point or something, because that definitely would have made this group a lot more interesting than it already is. But I guess I was hoping for too much, because Uranov skills his way past the opposing defenders and scores in the 72nd minute to seal a 3-2 win for the Uzbeks and set them well on their way to a potential World Cup spot in 2026, with them sealing 6 out of 6 points. But man, I feel for the Kyrgyz, bro. I hope they find a way to bounce back, especially my guy Joel Kojo. That's my dog for real. And now for the last match of Group A so far, we have the United Arab Emirates versus Iran. I was thinking that maybe the UAE could pull off this slight upset. After all, they literally just did that against Qatar away from home. So who says they can't do that against an Iran side that's going through some difficult times right now at home? Well, Iran has something to say, because thanks to the number 10, Gaede's goal and added time of the first half, Iran managed to secure a 1-0 victory. But don't worry, UAE, you also got plenty of time to potentially secure a ticket to the World Cup. Just, I'm gonna need y'all to lose against North Korea for agenda purposes in the next window. Sorry, lads.
It's not personal, son. It's strictly business.
With all that being said, here's how Group A looks like after 2 match days. We got Uzbekistan in first place right now with 6 points and 4 goals forwarded, which is the reason why they're first. Then we got Iran in second place with them getting 2 1-0 results. Then the UAE are in third place with 3 points. North Korea are in fourth with 1 point. Okay, we take those. Then Qatar is in fifth place, which is very surprising. And sadly, my dog Joel Kojo and Kyrgyzstan are in last place in the group with 0 points. But I still believe in them. Trust. Anyways, it's now finally time to talk about the Asian World Cup qualifying Group B, where we've got the likes of South Korea, Iraq, Oman, Jordan, Palestine, and Kuwait. Now, out of the 3 Asian World Cup qualifying groups left, none of them are normal, but this might be the most normal one so far. You'll see why. But before we get on with that, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it and it means a lot, so thank you. And also, if you guys can, follow my Twitter and my Instagram, both at Nabuto, if you just want to hear my thoughts on football games, transfers, and overall, just to get to know me more. So if you want to, feel free to hit me up with that follow. Thank you. Back to topic, let's start off with South Korea versus Palestine in Seoul. Now, South Korea dominated the match. I mean, they had 16 shots, 5 on target, with 76% possession, but they didn't make any of that count because the game ended in a 0-0 stalemate, which was very disappointing for South Korea because they were playing at home. So the expectation was to win the game, and their players on paper are significantly better. I mean, Heung-min Son, Lee Kang-in, Kim Min-jae, Hwang Hee-chan, etc. They're all technically better than any Palestine player. So to not win this game has got to be disappointing. But honestly, I gotta feel for Palestine, man. With everything going on with them is really disheartening and sad. So the fact that they can go to Seoul and somehow snatch a point is super inspiring to see. And man, if Palestine somehow makes the World Cup from this difficult group, hats off to them, man. And they low-key got a chance to do exactly that. You'll see soon. Let's now move on to Iraq versus Oman. And this game was being played at home in Iraq in front of almost 64,000 people. You know the Iraqi home fans go crazy too. Playing away in there must be difficult, which is why it was always an uphill battle for Oman, who typically are a pretty solid Asian nation of football. Anyways, Iraq are on the come up again, and they low-key had a good chance of winning this Asia Cup that just happened too. But they absolutely fumbled the bag against Jordan in the round of 16. I swear, if they just got through that, they had a pretty simple route to the final, I must say. Anyways, the man who got sent off in that game, Hussein, managed to give Iraq the lead in this game against Oman from a corner in the 13th minute. And despite both teams getting the chances throughout the match, this game would end in a 1-0 victory for Iraq. Not the most convincing victory, but 3 points is 3 points. Tough luck for Oman. Playing away in Iraq must be difficult, so I can't blame him. And now it's time for Jordan versus Kuwait in Oman. And Jordan should have had this one in the bag. I mean, their national team was on the come up too, and they are the recent AFC Asia Cup finalists, so this game should have been an easy 3 points. I mean, it's Kuwait, bro, with all due respect. It should have been my country instead, India. Man, this is some bullshit.
It should have been me, not him.
Anyways, in this match, Kuwait had more of the possession, but Jordan were the ones dominating the chances. However, despite Jordan getting so many chances in the game, they only managed to score 1 goal, and it was through Al-Tamari, Jordan's best player in my opinion, who scored in the 14th minute to get the lead from the home side. Now, everybody and their mother thought that Jordan was going to get the 3 points, regardless of whether they score 1 more goal or not. But we were so very wrong, because in the 90+2nd minute, right when Jordan were about to secure the 3 points, they gave away a silly and unnecessary penalty due to a stupid foul. And Nasser, the captain, stepped up to the spot and equalized the match for Kuwait, making sure the game game ended in a 1-1 draw, meaning Kuwait somehow snatched a point from Jordan away to them. Bro, if that was India, I swear we would have gotten battered like 7-0 or something.
Oh, that was uncalled for.
Let's now move on to match day 2 for Group B, and we did get some better games this time. And let's start off with Palestine versus Jordan. Now obviously Palestine aren't actually playing at home with everything going on, and instead they were playing in Malaysia. I feel bad, man. This is so unfair for Palestine for real, but that is a situation in it. And the game even started off bad for them, because in the 5th minute, Al-Lemar had an incredible solo moment and somehow finished the ball into the back of the net to give the Jordanians an early 1-0 lead. But luckily, right before halftime, despite Jordan dominating the chances and the possession, Palestine found a way back, with one of their first chances in the game going into the back of the net thanks to an open header from Wissam Ali, a man who just switched international allegiances from Denmark to Palestine to represent his ethnic country. Fair enough, but unluckily for Palestine, 5 minutes into the second half, Jordan had an amazing attacking sequence, and Al-Lemar once again slams the ball into the back of the net to return the lead back to Jordan, and Al-Rawabdeh scored for Jordan in the 72nd minute to secure a 3-1 win and get the World Cup qualifying campaign back on track. But don't worry, Palestine, it's still too early to call. The chance for you to make the World Cup, or more likely, the next round of World Cup qualifying, is still there. And now let's move on to Oman versus South Korea. This was a match to keep an eye on, especially with both of these national teams that have good pedigree in Asia not performing well on match day 1, with Oman losing to Iraq and South Korea drawing to Palestine at home. So some might say that this was a must-win game for both national teams, especially Oman with them playing at home. But beating South Korea was going to be no easy task, and they showed why in the 10th minute, with the striker Hwang Hee-chan, the man who scored the iconic goal against Portugal at the World Cup to send South Korea through to the round 16, scored against Oman from outside the box to give the South Koreans a 1-0 lead. But I do have to say, man, South Korea might have the best kits in all of international football. That pink home jersey is sexy, but this black away jersey is also sexy. South Korea, take my money.
And what is that, bro?
Back to the game though, right before halftime, Oman managed to clutch up and bring the game back level due to an own goal from a free kick. Listen, it doesn't matter how the ball goes into the back of the net. All that matters is it did. And no cap, it seemed like this own goal was going to cost South Korea once again, because for the longest time in the second half, despite getting the chances, the game was at a 1-1 stalemate that seemed like it wasn't going to get broken. But the man, the myth, the legend of South Korea, Heung-min Son, comes up huge for his country, and in the 82nd minute, regardless of him being surrounded by like 4 or 5 Oman defenders, takes a shot from outside the box and finishes it brilliantly into the back of the net to give South Korea a late 2-1 lead in the game. Of course, it had to be him. Who else? The script writers were cooking with this one. Oh, and Joo Min-kyu scored in the 9+11th minute. Yeah, there was a lot of ad time to secure a 3-1 win for South Korea. A huge 3 points for the East Asian country. While Oman, yeah, they're in the mud.
I am having a very bad day.
Now for the last game of match day 2 in Group B, we got Kuwait versus Iraq. And honestly, there isn't much to talk about because the game ended in a 0-0 stalemate. I do want to mention though that this flop was so obvious and outrageous, I thought he was going to get booked for diving. Instead, the Iraqi defender got sent off. What a terrible decision. Funny, but terrible. If India qualified instead of Kuwait though, we would have lost 8-0 or something for real.
Leave us alone. Leave us alone.
Anyways, with 2 match days now completed, here's how the Group B standings look like. We got Jordan on top of the table with 4 points thanks to more goals scored. Then South Korea is in second with also 4 points. Iraq is in third with also 4 points. It's tied at the top as we can see. And somehow Kuwait is in fourth with 2 points. How the hell did they get there, bruh? Then in fifth is Palestine with 1 point. They're not that far behind, to be honest. It's still early days. And Oman is in dead last with 0 points.
It's not looking good, bruv.
I'm very interested in seeing how this group plays out in the following months. But enough of that. Let's go to probably my favorite group right now in Asia World Cup qualifying. Group C, where we got the likes of Japan, Australia, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, China, and Indonesia. This group has got some drama, baby, and you know I love drama, especially as a neutral. I got ties to nobody, although I do like Japan a lot. I'm gonna need that Y3 jersey for sure. That kit is so beautiful. Speaking about Japan, let's start by talking about them in their game against China at home. And man, this game was almost too easy for the Japanese. After their disappointing Asian Cup, where they lost in the quarterfinals to Iran, I thought that Japan wouldn't be able to put up multiple goal games anymore. But I was wrong. So very wrong. And this downpour of goals started off in the 12th minute, where China thought that it was still 2020 with the way they were socially distancing from Wataru Endo, who had a free header and scored off a corner kick. That's my Liverpool defensive mid, man. W Endo in the chat, please. Then right before halftime, Kairi Mitoma got a header on the back post from across into the box and scored the second to give Japan a comfortable 2-0 lead. But listen, you've heard the saying that a 2-0 lead is the most dangerous scoreline in all of football. Maybe, just maybe, China had a chance of coming back or at least snatching a draw. But the second half is when the pouring of goals truly started. Right from the 52nd minute, Minamino, my ex-Liverpool GOAT, got on the score sheet to make it 3-0. But he wasn't finished, because in the 58th minute, Minamino made it 4-0 to add on to the suffering and misery for the Chinese. But we're still not finished. In the 77th minute, Junya Ito, who for some reason was left off of Japan's Asian Cup roster, I think, what a bad mistake, got on the score sheet as well to make it 5-0. Oh, but we're still not finished, because in the 87th minute, Daiza Maeda made it 6-0, and in the 90+5th minute, Takefusa Kubo made it 7-0 to the Japanese, and that was the end result. What an amazing win for the Japanese that surely bolsters up their goal difference in this very difficult Asian World Cup qualifying group. While China, on the other hand, and yeah, they are so finished.
There is no passion, there is no vision, there is no aggression.
Now I would try to find some positives for China in this game, but truly there were none. They barely had any opportunities of scoring. I think they had like one shot all game, and they were a total mess in the back, and their midfield was practically non-existent. All they did was give the ball away almost every chance they got. How the hell did China even make it this far, bruh? This is mad disappointing. For having a 1+ billion population, these guys are booty cheeks, but I can't say too much. After all, I am Indian, and we're 10 times worse than China.
Leave me alone!
The craziness of Group C is just beginning though, because the next game between Australia and Bahrain in the Gold Coast might have been the most surprising result of the lot. Now Australia dominated the game in terms of possession, chances, etc. Peep this, they had 72% possession with 11 shots and 4 shots on target, while Bahrain on the other hand had 28% possession and only 1 shot on target. So Australia were going off, and it seemed like eventually they would get the breakthrough and secure all 3 points. But no breakthrough arrived, and no goal was coming. They even tried something on the wonder kid, Nestoroy Irankunda, the 18-year-old who signed at Bayern Munich, but not even he could save Australia. Instead, everything went south, with Yankee on Australia getting a red card in the 77th minute due to him pulling off a De Jong World Cup 2010 final incident with a cleat to the chest. And then in the 89th minute, in what was supposed to be a cross, ended up in the ball going into the back of the net due to a very strong deflection from Sutar, which made it an own goal, which meant that at home, Australia would lose the opening match for them in the third round of qualifying to Bahrain out of all teams. Now I know it looks like that I'm trying to make Bahrain seem like a bad team or something, but the truth is they're actually not. If y'all recall, they actually topped their AFC Asia Cup group earlier this year with some good teams in it, so they have a capability of getting a win out of nowhere. But to see them beat Australia in Australia was just something crazy. Literally less than 2 years ago, Australia made it to the round of 16 at the World Cup and almost sent the game to extra time against the eventual champions Argentina, but Emiliano Martinez saved Garanquo's chance in the last second. And speaking of Garanquo, where is that guy, man? Australia needs to call in that youngster back in. He's him. But anyways, overall, Australia received a shocking loss. That's wild. Want to know something else that's wild though? It's Saudi Arabia somehow dropped points at home to Indonesia. Now Saudi seem to have unlimited wealth, with them signing the Euro 2021 winning manager Roberto Mancini to coach the squad, and the league is making rounds around the world, signing superstars like Cristiano Ronaldo, Neymar, Karim Benzema, etc. But for some reason, even though Saudi Arabia did pull off that crazy upset against Argentina at the World Cup, where they beat them 2-1, a game that I was actually at by the way, they've kind of been mid ever since. They disappointed at the Asian Cup, and despite Mancini coaching the team, this dude has never smiled once since being the coach, bro. This dude looks mad depressed while coaching Saudi Arabia. They might as well just replace the guy, especially after this window's performance for the national team, bro. Because in their opening game against Indonesia, Saudi were the heavy favorites to win the match with ease. But in the 19th minute, the unexpected happened, and the Saudi defense imploded while Walsh got on the end of a shot and redirected the ball into the back of the net to give Indonesia a surprising lead. Now Indonesia are a natural team that's on a massive come up. They're leaving their rivals Vietnam in the dust, and low-key judging off these performances, Indonesia might actually have a decent chance of at least making it to the next round of qualifying. But I'm getting a little too ahead of myself, because Al Jawair scored for Saudi Arabia towards the end of the first half to equalize the game. But then in the second half, it seemed like Saudi will get their win, because the FC Dallas goalkeeper and the Indonesian debutant Martin Pais made a huge mistake at the back in the 76th minute and gave away a penalty. But when the Saudi Arabian legend stepped up to take the spot kick, Al-Dasari, Martin Pais came up with a huge save to rectify his mistake and keep the game at a 1-1 draw. Bro went from 0 to hero in like less than 2 minutes. That is crazy. Not only that, in the 90+3rd minute, Saudi Arabia had a 1-on-1 chance with the Indonesian debutant keeper Pais, but he made himself big and saved the shot, securing the point in the 1-1 draw against Saudi. And Pais became Indonesia's MVP during this game. While Saudi Arabia, yeah, they're in the mud. What's crazy about these results on match day 1 though, is that China's biggest ops for this round of World Cup qualifying is Bahrain and Indonesia, and both of them got points, while China ended up with 0. That's tough. But now it's time to move on to match day 2, where we also had some pretty insane results. To start us out with Bahrain versus Japan in Bahrain, it seemed like the Middle Eastern nation could potentially pull off another upset, but Japan proved that they're simply on another level compared to Australia, bro. These guys are light years ahead. That's because they destroyed Bahrain. Ueda scored 2 goals, one in the 37th minute and then one in the 47th minute. Then Morita scored 2 goals, one in the 61st minute and one in the 64th minute. And then Ogawa scored in the 81st minute to secure a final victory for Japan, meaning that in just 2 games, Japan has a plus 12 goal difference. These guys need to be nerfed for real. Let's now move on to China versus Saudi Arabia. Well, honestly, I didn't expect too much from the Chinese, especially after their disastrous performance against Japan. But China came in with a different type of energy. They wanted those 3 points. And side note, man, those Chinese home kits are so fire. What's with Asian football and dropping fire kits for real?
This motherfucker don't miss.
No, he's fucking good.
That motherfucker don't miss, man.
He's good.
Back to the game though, China took an early lead in the match actually, and it was off a corner kick due to an own goal. But y'all know the saying, a goal is a goal, we take those. Not only that, things got even better for China when in the 19th minute, Mohamed Kano from Saudi Arabia struck his foot into a Chinese player's chest while he was on the ground and got sent off. So 20 minutes into the match basically, China already had a 1-0 lead at home, and they were playing against 10-men Saudi Arabia. Surely, this would be the chance for China to pull off an upset and get the World Cup qualifying campaign back on track, right?
Better.
There's one less play.
Yeah, China's kryptonite is set pieces, and they conceded to 1 10 minutes after the red card. That's tough. Now China were actually still in the game, with Wu Lei actually having a really good chance of scoring, but his header hitting the crossbar. And with both teams going back and forth and not scoring, it seemed like both China and Saudi Arabia would share a point each and call it a day. But then, in the 90th minute, quite literally the last chance of the match, this happened.
Time running out. This could be the last chance of the game.
Yeah. China conceded in the last minute off a corner kick again, and proceeded to lose the game 2-1. And what makes this loss even worse for China is that Indonesia pulled off another upset against Australia, with them escaping with the point in the 0-0 draw against them at home, meaning that China's main opponent for a spot has got another point over them. So China, yeah, it's not looking too good. But hey, that home kit, yeah, y'all did a good job on that for real. That's probably like the only compliment I could give you guys right now. After all, you guys are literally last place with 0 points and a -8 goal difference. So I'm really trying here. Speaking about the table though, let's now go over it with both of the match days now completed. Japan are on top with 6 points, winning both of their games rather convincingly. Saudi Arabia is in second somehow, despite being disappointing. Bahrain is in third, they're making a real statement here. Indonesia is 2, with them being in 4th. Australia are very surprisingly in 5th place, that's a shocker. And then there's China. So overall, like I said, it's been pretty crazy here in Group C, and honestly all of Asian World Cup qualifying. But ladies and gentlemen, we are not finished with World Cup qualifying yet, because the South American qualifying has been absolutely insane so far this international window as well. Before we go to CONMEBOL though, I would like to remind y'all that I do got a second channel now, and you should subscribe to that for extra content and just me ranting about football. Link to the channel is in the description below. Now before this September international window took place, this is how the table looked like. We had Argentina in first with 15 points, Uruguay in second with 13 points, Colombia in third with 12 points, then Venezuela, then Ecuador, then Brazil at 6th surprisingly with 7 points, Paraguay in that inter-confederation playoff spot, then Chile, then Bolivia in 9th with them looking like they were dead in the water, and then Peru in last. Yeah, those guys got no hope of making it to the World Cup. I'm sorry. And spoiler alert, they're still last.
I'm gonna come up there right now and I'm gonna fucking stuff that thing up your fucking ass.
And now, heading into match day 7 of CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying, out of the 5 games that happened, only 2 were normal results, quote unquote. One was Argentina beating the hell out of their arch nemesis, or one of them I should say, Chile 3-0 at home, and I mean it was to be expected, Chile didn't stand a chance. And shout out to Dybala for rocking the 10 in this game too, with Messi being out of his window injured. The 10 does kinda suit him, I'm not gonna lie. He deserves it if Messi ever chooses to retire. Then the other normal game, quote unquote, would be Brazil beating Ecuador 1-0 at home. And it was only thanks to a 30th minute Rodrigo goal that Brazil even secured the 3 points. Rodrigo took that disrespect of not being on that Ballon d'Or shortlist personally, and him not being involved on Jude Bellingham's story/post or whatever it was.
It's my fucking shoulder. They cut me from the picture. They can't just cut me from the fucking picture. They can't cut me out.
But honestly, is this even a normal result? I mean, Ecuador have somewhat of a golden generation happening, while Brazil are in the roughest state I've ever seen them in a long time. So maybe this shouldn't be a considered result as of right now. But regardless, Brazil got the 3 points. So, what games weren't normal? Well, Uruguay managed to draw Paraguay 0-0. Now, Uruguay do have a ton of suspensions right now after what happened in that Colombia versus Uruguay Copa America semifinal. Like, for example, Darwizi is banned for like 5 games for Uruguay. And no, Luis Suarez retired internationally now too. But regardless, you would expect Uruguay to get 3 points at home against Paraguay, and they didn't. So yeah, then there's Peru somehow getting a draw against Colombia. Remember, Colombia had like a 29 game unbeaten streak before the Copa America final. They were in some hot form, and all of a sudden they couldn't beat a weak Peru side. Like bro, Colombia almost lost too. In fact, they were losing 1-0 for a good part of the second half until Luis Diaz came up clutch in the 82nd minute to equalize the game late. Disappointing for Colombia, but an honorable point for Peru, I guess. But the most surprising result of match day 7 in CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying has to be the game between Bolivia and Venezuela. Let me narrate everything for y'all real quick. So of course, with Bolivia playing at home, they were using the high elevation to their advantage, and they used it well, because in the 13th minute, arguably Bolivia's best player in my opinion, Ramiro Vaca, hits an outrageous strike from way downtown and hits a top bins to give Bolivia an early lead in the game 1-0. What a golazo from Vaca, man. That was one of the best goals I've seen all year. Then late in the first half, Bolivia won a penalty in the 45th plus 5th minute, and it kind of looked like a dive, I'm not gonna lie. Bro literally looked like he was about to take a dip in the ocean, but game's the game, I guess. And then Oceania stepped up to take it and slotted the ball in coolly to give Bolivia a 2-0 lead. But we're not finished yet, because at the start of the second half in the 46th minute, Terceros gets on the end of a cross and makes it 3-0. And then at the very end of the game at around the 89th minute, it was Montero's turn to get on the end of a cross, and he hit the ball in to make it 4-0 in what was a monstrous and gigantic victory for the Bolivians to potentially set their World Cup campaign back on track. Keep in mind, Venezuela are a very good team right now. In fact, they were 4th place in the standings as I mentioned earlier. So for Bolivia to knock 4 past them is wild. That elevation is really coming in handy, huh? But Bolivia don't really need that elevation anymore. You'll see why soon. Moving on to match day 8, I would say we had 2 normal games once again. Ecuador managed to beat Peru 1-0, kind of underwhelming, and it was only 1 goal, but a win is win. And then Venezuela drew Uruguay 0-0. Nothing else needs to be said about that match. It was kind of boring. But in the other 3 games, there was a huge surprise in each of them. Let's start off with Paraguay versus Brazil. The insanity started in the 20th minute, with Gomez scoring from outside the box with the outside of his boot to give his country, Paraguay, the rare lead in the match. And guess what? Even though Brazil has some star power like Rodrigo, Vinicius, Endrick, Bruno Guimaraes, Lucas Paqueta, etc., and with 71% possession and 9 shots, they couldn't find a way to score, which meant that Paraguay out of nowhere defeated Brazil 1-0 to pull off the ultimate upset. Brazil, what the hell is going on, bro? Brazil's coach, Dorival Jr., literally said that they'll be in the World Cup final in 2026, and he said there'll be no doubts. And then 24 hours later, these guys lost to Paraguay in the qualifiers. To make matters even worse for Brazil, from 2003 to 2022, which is 19 years long, they only lost 5 games in World Cup qualifying. But for the 2026 World Cup qualifiers, in 8 games, they've already lost 4. This is an international crisis for Brazil, bro. I've never seen them so weak in my life, and I've had to watch Neymar carry that sorry ass 2014 and 2018 World Cup team. So I've seen Brazil in the trenches before, but this is the worst I've ever seen them in. But I did put a tweet out recently where I said this Neymar return arc to helping his country win the World Cup after barely qualifying without him is about to be generational, and that tweet kind of blew up. But I meant what I said. With Neymar coming back and being healthy, Brazil are gonna come back. Watch this space. Anyways, let's now move on to another crazy upset in the Colombia versus Argentina game. Now, if you don't recall, these two were the finalists of the 2024 Copa America. Lautaro Martinez's extra time winner goal separated these two sides and helped Argentina win back-to-back Copa Americas and win 3 trophies in a row. 4 if you count the Finalissimo. Fair play, Argentina. But Colombia wanted revenge. So much so that they even booed Argentina's national anthem when it played. What the hell? But anyways, in the game, it started off well for the Colombians because in the 25th minute, James Rodrigo drops in a dime of a ball in front of the goal and Mosquera jumps the highest and gets to it to give Colombia the lead in the game. Where was this in the Copa America final, bruh? It's not all sunshine and rainbows for Colombia though, because Nico Gonzalez for Argentina equalized the game early on in the second half in the 48th minute, and it did seem like Argentina could come away and get the 3 points. But James Rodriguez, Super James Rodriguez, comes up clutch from the spot and converts the penalty to give Colombia a 2-1 lead, something that they would keep for the rest of the game to secure all 3 points. So the practically invincible Argentina have suffered another defeat in World Cup qualifying, and now Colombia are almost guaranteed a spot at the 2026 World Cup. Fair play. And I just want to say, Viva Colombia! Sorry, I just felt like I had to say that, just in case some fine Colombian shorties are watching this video. And if you are, hey, what's good, baby girl? But now, for the biggest upset in CONMEBOL World Cup qualifiers so far, I must say, is this Chile versus Bolivia game. Now, Chile's national team is dog water, don't get it twisted, but this was still very, very impressive from Bolivia, and it started off great for the Bolivians in the 13th minute, with Algarañas getting on the end of a loose ball to give his side the 1-0 lead. But in the 39th minute, Vargas got the equalizer for Chile after a very horrendous mistake by the goalkeeper. I think he got injured or something, so maybe Vargas shouldn't have scored that goal, come to think of it, but whatever, man, game is the game. It didn't even matter in the end though, because in the 45th plus 6th minute, the Arceros from Bolivia hit the ball on the underside of the crossbar into the back of the net to restore the lead for Bolivia. And this is the craziest part. Bolivia managed to hold on to that lead, meaning that on sea level, they had no elevation tactic this time. And for the first time since 1993, Bolivia won an away game in World Cup qualifying. Now that is crazy. And that's the type of stuff I want to see in these World Cup qualifiers. Seeing favorites win all the time is kind of boring, but seeing Bolivia pull off this masterclass, yeah, I like that. And to make things even crazier, Bolivia are super close to an Interconfederation playoff spot right now. They're on the same amount of points as Paraguay, but are only down below them because of goal difference. And that means there's a realistic chance that Bolivia could make the 2026 World Cup. Now that would be epic.
Now, this is epic.
And also, I know I said Brazil are in risk of not qualifying for the World Cup, but they are in 5th place right now. So I may or may not have baited you. But to be honest, they're only 1 point safe right now. Anything can happen. Better hope Neymar comes through and clutches up for the country, because they need a hero. But anyways, that's everything that has happened in the September international window for World Cup 2026 qualifying. It's pretty insane, right? I wasn't lying. World Cup 2026 qualifying resumed in the October international window for Asia, South America, and Oceania, and some absolutely insane results happened in this window. Back-to-back Asia Cup champions Qatar are still at risk of not qualifying automatically, so are Saudi Arabia, who didn't win at all this window despite only playing at home. China actually somehow got a win despite being absolutely booty cheeks. I know, it's kind of surprising. Bolivia are actually in serious contention of qualifying for the World Cup, while Uruguay this time are at a potential risk of not qualifying, etc, etc. So as you can see, there have been many crazy results and upsets. And with that, let's take a look at everything that happened in the October international window regarding the 2026 World Cup qualifiers. I would like to announce that I have now created a Discord server where I aim to build a thriving football community that is interested in just discussing the sport with like-minded people, and also at the same time bond over the videos I make. It's basically a hub for my community. So if you got a Discord and are interested in joining, be sure to click the link at the top of my description and join the community. Alright, back to the video. Let's start off with the AFC World Cup qualifiers first. And just a reminder on how this process works. For every group at Asia's World Cup qualifying, the first 2 places in the group get an automatic ticket to the World Cup, while 3rd and 4th place go to the next round of qualifying, and 5th and 6th place will be eliminated. Had to say that part for the new viewers, and for those of y'all who don't remember. Anyway, starting off with Group A at the Asian World Cup qualifiers, we got Qatar, Iran, United Arab Emirates, Uzbekistan, North Korea, and Kyrgyzstan playing for a ticket at the 2026 World Cup. And after the September international window, the table looked like this. Uzbekistan was in first place with 6 points, Iran was in second place with also 6 points but less goals forwarded, then the United Arab Emirates were in third with 3 points, North Korea were in fourth with 1 point, back-to-back Asian Cup champions Qatar were shockingly in fifth with 1 point, and Kyrgyzstan was in dead last with 0 points. And now moving on to the first game of matchday 3, let's talk about Uzbekistan versus Iran. And these two are the heavy favorites to make it out of this group and qualify automatically to the 2026 World Cup. So football fans thought that this clash was about to be an all-time Asian classic, especially after the fact that these two countries were in the same group in the second round of 2026 World Cup qualifying, with both of them getting 14 points, and in the 2 games they played each other in, it was a 2-2 and a 0-0 draw, which meant that these two sides could not be separated. And this only added on to the fact that if any of these countries won this game, they would basically be guaranteed a spot at the World Cup, since nobody else could really compete consistently with these two heavyweights. But instead, this anticipated matchup ended up being a snooze fest. I mean, throughout the game, there were only a total of 6 shots on target. You'd expect there to be more, especially from Uzbekistan's side, because they only had 1 shot on target when they were a man up for like 35 minutes. You see in the 57th minute, Saleh Hardani committed a studs-up challenge to Uzbekistan's captain and best player, Shomurodov, and because of that, he received a straight red card and got sent off. But even with this man-up advantage, Uzbekistan failed to make it count. In fact, it seemed like Iran were the better team despite being down to 10. And I was actually pretty impressed by them, I can't lie. Additionally, they even had a late penalty call at a time, but the ref overturned it after seeing that the Uzbekistan defender had his hand in a natural position. And even after that, Iran almost snatched the game towards the end too. Overall, it was a really disappointing match. I really wanted to see Uzbekistan go at Iran, especially being at home and having a man up. But overall, both favorites receiving a point is something that these two sides are not going to complain about. But moving on from this game, let's now go to Qatar, a supposed heavyweight in Asia, versus the bottom of the group, Kyrgyzstan. Now this was a battle at the bottom, because as I mentioned previously, Qatar, the back-to-back Asian champs, were somehow 5th place on the table, and have had a bad start to Asia World Cup qualifying, losing to UAE at home in the first game, and drawing to North Korea away 2-2 in the second game back in September. But now, Qatar had an opportunity to redeem themselves and get their World Cup qualifying campaign back on track, with them having to play Kyrgyzstan, the weakest team in this group, respectfully. Now if y'all watched the September video, you guys would know that I actually like Kyrgyzstan, and I'm a huge fan of one of their players, Joel Kojo, and I think he's an absolute beast. But for him and the rest of the national team to go to Doha and steal a point was a task too difficult, because they didn't do that. Instead, Qatar got the business done. The Arab nation dominated this match completely, having 64% possession, 30 shots, and 8 of those on target. And they also almost had double the amount of passes compared to the Kyrgyz. And they would make this domination count in the 39th minute, where from a corner, taken by the brand new Qatar player, the Belgian-born Brazilian who just got his first cap with the Qatari national team after receiving citizenship recently, Edmilson Jr., sent the ball in. And after finding the head of a teammate before finding Almoz Ali's balls of steel, Ali put the ball in to give Qatar a 1-0 lead. Bro literally scored with his cock. You know that shit was definitely hard. Hey yo! Moving on from that, in the 63rd minute, Akram Afif sends in a cross from a dangerous area, but it takes a deflection from the Kyrgyzstan defender, Damirlan Kuzubayev, and goes into the back of his own net to put the Qataris up 2-0. Then, even though Shukurov brings the game back within 1 for Kyrgyzstan in the 76th minute with a well-taken finish, Ibrahim Al-Hassan sealed the game off 4 minutes later in the 81st minute after his team pounced on a mistake in the back to seal the game 3-1 and bring Qatar their first 3 points of the 3rd round of AFC World Cup qualifying. I feel for Kyrgyzstan, man. I would have loved to see them snatch a point, but Qatar were just too good. And in all honesty, Kyrgyzstan really had no chance in this match.
Come on, man. That's too easy.
Now I do want to highlight Akram Afif really quickly. He's easily Qatar's best player and one of the best players in Asian football. And I feel like this dude does not get the respect he deserves. I mean, peep these stats from this game alone. He literally had 11 chances created against Kyrgyzstan and now has 18 chances created through the 3 games of the 3rd round, which is more than or equal to the entire UAE national team, Iraq, Kuwait, Indonesia, China, and Bahrain. Shout out Jack and the rest of Deadball TV for these stats, by the way. Super underrated channel. Feel free to check him out. And this is Afif all by himself, by the way. Not the Qatar national team, just him. Wow. Akram Afif, he's the real deal. Asian football is just too easy for him, man. After all, he literally just got a hat-trick in the Asian Cup final earlier in January.
That's too easy.
Let's now move on to the last game of matchday 3 in AFC Group A, where we had the United Arab Emirates versus North Korea. Now this game was a good one, and if you're a regular viewer of this channel, you would know that I'm a North Korea simp.
What do you mean by that?
Only in football though, do not get it twisted. The US government, if you're watching this, I don't mean politically. Please, don't come after me. Anyways, regarding the North Korean national team, I have a dream where I want to see the United States get grouped with North Korea at the World Cup, and they have to play each other. That will literally be the most viewed football game of all time in my opinion. And for that to happen, I would need North Korea to qualify for the World Cup. And I wanted them to beat the UAE in this game, despite being away from home. It ain't personal, UAE, it's just business.
It's not personal, son. It's strictly business.
Now, North Korea's national team is actually pretty damn good. It's just impossible to do a proper analysis on them because, well, it's North Korea. Who the hell knows anything about them? Regardless, they showed why they're good once again versus the UAE, with them having the better attacking stats, like 17 shots, with 6 of them on target compared to the UAE's 1, and despite having around 130 less passes compared to the UAE, the accuracy of them was only 6% behind the Arab nation. In the match 2, North Korea had most of the chances in the first half, and it seemed like in the second half, they were going to get the win. But just like the UAE did to Qatar, they showed up in the second half out of nowhere, at least initially. A UAE sheikh must have promised them Ferraris this time or something, I swear. In any case, in the 66th minute, Yahya Al-Ghassani goes on a solo run from the halfway line uncontested, and he finds his way into the North Korea box, and then shoots the ball straight at the keeper, in which somehow the keeper didn't save it, and the ball goes in to give the UAE a 1-0 lead. From here on out, UAE and their fans definitely thought that they had this game in the bag. But like I said before, North Korea ball is no joke, and they turned up the heat tenfold after this goal went in. Literally 5 minutes later in the 71st minute, North Korea wins a penalty due to a silly challenge from a UAE defender, and the one and only, my boy Hong Kwang-song steps up. If y'all don't know who this is, he was once labeled the North Korean Ronaldo and played for the likes of Cagliari and even Juventus in the Serie A. But due to UN restrictions, he had to go back to North Korea, and he disappeared off the face of the earth for like 3 years before resurfacing due to these World Cup qualifiers. If you're interested in learning about his story, I'm gonna do an entire video about him, since I'm a Hong Kwang-song stan. And since I'm a huge fan of the kid, I wanted him to convert this penalty so bad, but instead, he shot a poorly taken penalty into the hands of the UAE keeper, Khalid Asa, one of the best goalkeepers in Asia, and the game remained 0-0. And this missed penalty now means that North Korea are 0 for 2 from the spot in these third round qualifiers. They gotta start working more on penalties in their training sessions for real. I don't want to see another one missed. But anyway, seeing Hong Kwang-song miss from the spot really tore my heart into pieces, bruh. But fear not, North Korea learned from the great Nick A30 and took his inspirational words into heart.
Never back down, never what?
Never give up!
Let's run it! Let's go!
And in the 86th minute, when it all seemed lost, Jong Il-kwon finds an open header on the back post from across and heads it in to bring the game back level for North Korea, and the match would end in a 1-1 stalemate. A very impressive point for North Korea, and kind of an underwhelming one for the UAE, because they would expect to win after being at home and having the lead. And also, this game was on the back of that impressive win against Qatar in September. But low-key, North Korea should have won this game. Maybe they'll look back and regret not securing 3 points against the UAE. Only time will tell. Was that a bit of foreshadowing? Perhaps. Anyways, let's now head over to match day 4 in Group A, where we'll start with Uzbekistan versus the United Arab Emirates. Now, if you take a look at the stats, you'll see things like 24 shots for Uzbekistan with 4 on target, and the UAE having 5 shots on target, etc. But in all honesty, this game wasn't too exciting. And I'm sorry if this is offensive to any Uzbek viewers out there, but man, y'all national team is just boring as shit. Don't get me wrong, you guys are efficient and good, which is why after this game, I could confidently say that Uzbekistan will make their first ever World Cup, but they just do it in such boring fashion, man. I have to say it how it is. Like, look, in the game, both teams had opportunities to score. Yes, UAE had a little bit more, but just like in the game against Iran, the opposing side to Uzbekistan went down to 10 men, and it was because of this very rash slide tackling challenge from Abdullah Hamad in the 65th minute. A deserved red for sure. But after the UAE went down to 10 men, it just felt like Uzbekistan were more passive than I felt like they should have been. Yes, I'm aware they got a penalty due to a handball from a UAE defender, and the Uzbek Shukurov stepped up to the plate and slotted in the penalty to give Uzbekistan the lead, something that they would hold on for the rest of the match as they won the game 1-0. But my point stands. It feels like Uzbekistan are just a little too passive and too boring. But they won the game, and they're in pole position to qualify for the 2026 World Cup. So you gotta respect it. A win is a win.
A win is a win. A win is a win. I don't care what y'all say.
Now let's move on to the next match. And this was a game I was actually looking forward to the most in this window. It's Kyrgyzstan versus North Korea. Now I like both of these national teams for separate reasons, as I mentioned before. But I wanted to see North Korea win more. These guys have ballers on their squad, and with the Kyrgyz probably being the weakest team in the group, I fully expected North Korea to take care of business here. But the match went in the exact opposite direction. It all went south for North Korea early on in the 11th minute, where after some terrible defending and some questionable goalkeeping ability / positioning, Christian Brosman gets on the end of the ball and hits it in somehow to give the Kyrgyz a rare lead in AFC World Cup qualifying. North Korea, what were y'all doing, bruh? And the goalkeeper? How did you not save that? I swear, you put me in the net and I'm saving that ball 10 out of 10 times. But calm down, there was still some hope, because North Korea had been used to going down in World Cup qualifying and finding a way back in the match. So I thought maybe North Korea could come back and get the win this time. but it seems like they left those shooting missile boots they usually have back in Pyongyang, because no matter what they try in this game, they failed to score, and North Korea lost to Kyrgyzstan away from home. Bro, with performances like this, my agenda of wanting to see USA versus North Korea at the World Cup won't happen, because these guys aren't getting their shit together. First you screw up a penalty against the UAE, and then you lose to the Kyrgyz away. With all due respect, of course. Come on, man. North Korea have used all their lives. They're on their last one if they want to make it to the next round of qualifying for the World Cup, and forget about an automatic ticket to the tournament. Uzbekistan and Iran got that on lock. And speaking about Iran, let's talk about their match against Qatar. Now these two sides have some beef with each other in recent history, because at the AFC Asia Cup earlier this year, Iran looked like the favorites to go on and maybe win the tournament. After all, they knocked out the favorites Japan in the quarterfinals 2-1, but in the semis, they had to play against the host Qatar, and despite taking an early lead in the match, they somehow ended up losing 3-2, and Qatar went on to win the Asia Cup in their place. So with this World Cup qualifying match, Iran wanted revenge, and they knew defeating Qatar would put their World Cup hopes in jeopardy. So Iran were ready to go out there and get it back in blood, and that's what they did. Iran weren't even allowed to play at home. They had to play in Dubai, but that didn't matter to them. They wanted all the smoke. In the game though, Qatar actually got the surprising lead thanks to Almoz Ali, who brought the ball down beautifully and finished it fiercely into the back of the net to give his nation the 1-0 advantage. Iran got opened up like a spandex on Miami Beach. That was too easy for the Qataris, but I did say Iran wanted the smoke, and they got what they wanted. Turns out, the horse lover who sacrificed his potential to go to Dubai is actually still quite good at football, and he showed why, by not only smashing the ball into the crossbar from a chance he created himself in the 32nd minute, but mainly because of his header goal that he scored from in the 42nd minute. But Asmoon wasn't done in this game just yet, because in what felt like a mistake from Qatar's goalkeeper that came straight out of FIFA, like literally he tripped over his own player, what the hell? Asmoon got on the end of the loose ball and finished it to give the Iranians a 2-1 advantage in the game. Fair play to Asmoon, man. He came up clutch for his country when they thought he didn't care about the sport no more. He's a big game player, it seems like. The fun doesn't stop for Iran yet though, because Mohebi also comes up big with 2 goals himself. One in the 65th minute where he got a free goal thanks to Asmoon's unselfish pass, and then a headed goal from him in the 90+8th minute to secure a 4-1 win for Iran. Up until this game, I thought Iran were a national team that was on the decline, and that they only played boring football and somehow would always end up with the 1-0 win. But in this game, Iran proved me wrong, and they killed the back-to-back Asian champions. Seems like they got their revenge successfully, like Sasuke finally defeating Itachi after hating him for years, until he finds out that Itachi was actually a pretty good Oops, that was kind of spoiler territory. Let's not talk about that part. Anyways, with all that being said, Group A of Asian World Cup qualifying in the October international window has now been wrapped up. So let's take a look at the table standings. We got Iran in first place thanks to their goal difference and also 10 points. Then Uzbekistan is right behind them with also 10 points. The United Arab Emirates are still somehow in third with 4 points. Qatar is in fourth with also 4 points, just a lower goal difference after getting bodied by Iran. Then Kyrgyzstan are in fifth with them having an overall impressive window, and North Korea are in dead last in sixth. And although it seems like North Korea is dead in the water, don't worry North Korea fans, if there are any of you out there, there's still hope. Most of North Korea's remaining games are going to be at home, and they're only 2 points behind a 4th round spot, so all hope isn't lost, believe me. But anyways, it's now finally time to move on to Asian World Cup qualifying Group B, where we've got the likes of South Korea, Iraq, Oman, Jordan, Palestine, and Kuwait. And after the September international window, the table looked like this. Jordan were in first place in the group with 4 points, only ahead of second due to goals scored. Then South Korea were in second with 4 points, Iraq were in third with also 4 points, important to note that they had no goals conceded. Then Kuwait were in 4th place surprisingly with 2 points, Palestine were in 5th with 1 point, and Oman shockingly were dead last in the group with 0 points. Let's now move on to the first game of match day 3 in AFC World Cup qualifying Group B, where we had Jordan versus South Korea. Now these two Asian countries have had some recent beef in 2024, which is why football fans were looking forward to this match very much. But before we talk about that, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it, and it means a lot, so thank you. And also, if you guys can, follow my Twitter and my Instagram, both at Nabuto, if you just want to hear my thoughts on football games, transfers, and overall, just to get to know me more. And also, make sure to join the Discord server, link in the description, and also follow me on Twitch. Live streams coming soon. You see, back at the AFC Asian Cup in January, South Korea were looking like one of the favorites to go on and win their 3rd Asian Cup, their first one since 1960. But in the semifinals against Jordan, they collapsed. Maybe due to their poor tactics from their then manager at the time, Jürgen Klinsmann, or because of the beef between Lee Kang-in and Heung-min Son that shook up the whole squad. Don't worry, these two are more than fine now, or potentially it was a mix of both of these things. But regardless, South Korea collapsed, and Jordan won the match 2-0 to make it to their first ever Asian Cup final, while South Korea failed with a golden opportunity. So now, with South Korea traveling away to Jordan for this World Cup qualifying game, you know that there was going to be a lot of eyeballs on this heated and initially even matchup. But in all honesty, it wasn't even at all. In fact, South Korea dominated this match despite being away from home. They did have 1 less shot compared to Jordan, yes, but they had 3 more on target, they had more than 3/4 of the possession, and they completed 89% of their 761 passes, which was more than triple basically of Jordan's. And South Korea would make this domination of the game count in the 38th minute, with the number 10 Lee Jae-sung having a wide open header in front of the the goal and headed the ball into the net to put the South Koreans up 1-0. The South Koreans would double their lead in the 68th minute too, thanks to Oh Hyun-gyu, who scissored his way past the Jordanian defender and hit the ball straight into the net to put his country up 2-0. And by the end, South Korea would hold on to that 2-0 lead and defeat Jordan away from home, the same country that beat them to reach the AFC Asia Cup final. Really disappointing stuff from Jordan, I can't lie. I expected them to compete at least a little bit better, but instead it felt like all the good chances fell to South Korea and they had this game wrapped up for minute 1. And I know Jordan were missing Al-Tamari, arguably their best player, but South Korea were also missing their best player Heung-min Son, who was out of this window due to injury. So there's no excuses for Jordan. It's a tough loss for them at home, and they look like a shadow of their former selves compared to a few months ago. And for South Korea, I was really impressed with that, I'm not gonna lie. Last window they went away to Oman and got the dub, and now this window they did the same here but to Jordan. Fair play to them for real. Let's now move on to the next match in Group B, where we had Oman versus Kuwait. Now this was this group's battle of the bottom, with Kuwait impressing in the previous window, getting draws against Jordan and Iraq, while Oman actually got bodied in the first 2 games, losing to Iraq away from home 1-0, and then losing to South Korea at home 3-1. But like I said in the last video, Oman has recently been known as a pretty good Asian side, and the fact of the matter is, they had to face arguably the 2 best teams in the group in Iraq and South Korea, with one of them being away from home. So Oman taking 2 L's shouldn't be too alarming, and I mean, they showed why in this game, because Oman absolutely dog walked, stepped all over, and for lack of better terms, bit Kuwait in this game. It should have been India in this game instead for real. We would have done better. Who am I kidding? No, we wouldn't. We probably would have lost 7-0 or something.
Hey man, that's not cool.
Now, not only did Oman dominate in the shots on target, the possession, passes, pass accuracy, etc., but they also dominated in their goal score too.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
From the get-go in the 17th minute, after some very good 1-2 play, Abdul Rahman Eid Harib Al-Mushafri scored to put Oman up 1-0. And damn bro, that's one long-ass name. Felt like I just read out an entire dictionary to you guys. Anyways, back to the game. Musen Al-Ghassani would double the score in the 30th minute with a header right in front of the goalkeeper. And then after, Kuwait got a couple of chances, but the man with the long name would make it 3-0 in the 58th minute thanks to an incredible pinpoint finish. But the game isn't over just yet, because in the 79th minute, Abdullah Fawaz would pounce on a great cross from his teammate to make it 4-0 and steal a triumphant win for Oman in the 3rd round of Asian World Cup qualifying, breaking the Arab nation's losing streak. Well played, Oman, well played. The streets thought you were finished, but you're back now, I guess. Or are they? Ooh, foreshadowing. Spoiler alert, they're not really back, but we'll get to that. And Kuwait, yeah, nah. Huh? And now let's finally move on to the last Group B game of Match Day 3. We got Iraq versus Palestine, and this game went exactly as how people thought it would go. Look, it would have been an incredible story if Palestine, with everything going on with their nation off the pitch, went to Iraq with the crazy and amazing fan atmosphere they got over there, and somehow got at least a point. But the thing about Iraq in 2024 is, although sometimes unconvincingly, meaning they don't like to run up the score a lot, they handled their business well. And the minute I saw Ayman Hussein back in Iraq's starting 11, I knew they would cook. There was a huge debate online whether Hussein would even be fit enough to play for Iraq in this October international window, with him needing to go to the hospital after an injury last time or something like that, but it seemed like he was fit enough to make the starting 11 against Palestine, and this would be crucial for the Iraqis, because in the 31st minute, Hussein somehow controlled the ball against 2 Palestinian defenders, and then hit the ball with his weak left foot straight to the bottom left corner to put Iraq up 1-0 in the match. And then although Iraq failed to score again in this match, despite getting most of the chances, and Palestine failing to capitalize from a corner kick late into the game, with a new Palestinian recruit, Wessam Abu Ali, almost scoring with a header, Iraq held on to that 1-0 lead and secured those very important 3 points. Listen, as I said before, Iraq might not be the most convincing national team, beating teams 3-0 or 4-0 and stuff like that, but they're strong in defending, and they're getting the job done regardless, so fair play to them. And for Palestine, unlucky, but all hope isn't lost, of course. At least not yet. Let's now move on to Match Day 4 for Group B, where we're going to start off with the South Korea versus Iraq game. This was one of the biggest games in this international window in Asia, especially because both of these teams are favorites to make the World Cup from this group. And although on the surface it would seem like South Korea would maybe win this game with ease, but the truth is, Iraq are much better than what people think. And Heung-min Son is also out of this window because of injury, as I mentioned before. Therefore, this game was a tricky one to predict, but the home team did their job and dominated the match. If we just look at the stats, sure, Iraq might have had more shots, but South Korea had 3 shots on target. And let's just say, they didn't miss a single one of those.
This motherfucker don't miss.
No, he's fucking good.
That motherfucker don't miss, man.
He's good.
Additionally, these guys dominated a little more than 3/4 of the possession, and their pass accuracy was almost a 90%. As an Asian man myself, you know, not that type of Asian, but Asian nevertheless, when you see something close to 90%, you know that you've done one hell of a job. That's an A- after all. And South Korea did just that. Even though Iraq seemed like they would be the ones breaking the deadlock first, it was South Korea obviously, and it was thanks to Oh Se-hun, who found an open spot in the box and scored the goal in the 41st minute to give the Koreans the lead. But this lead wouldn't last too long, since early on in the second half at around the 50th minute, who else but Mr. Inevitable, Ayman Hussein, scored some sort of bicycle kick-ish to bring Iraq back level in this game. Hussein is insane. Yo, that kinda rhymed. I'm Eminem and shit.
You are not him. You are not him.
But like I was saying, he's cracked. He's now scored in 10 consecutive international matches, only number 4 by the likes of all-time greats like Ali Dai, Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, and Neymar Jr. Elite company for an inevitable striker. But his inevitability couldn't help Iraq get the W, and that's because Ho Hyung-gyu was open in the box to receive a cross in the 74th minute and ended up burning his chance to bring South Korea the lead back. And in the 83rd minute, Lee Jae-sung gets on the end of another Korean corner, and his diving header smashes the ball into the back of the net to give South Korea a 3-1 lead. And even though Bayesh ended up scoring in the 90+5th minute to bring 1 goal back for Iraq, it wasn't enough, and South Korea ended up winning the match 3-2 and secured a huge victory in their World Cup qualifying hopes. And no cap, after seeing South Korea defeat 2 favorites alongside them in this group, just in this window, in Jordan and Iraq, without their main man and captain Heung-min Son, I think South Korea is in pretty safe hands to qualify for the 2026 World Cup. Iraq are also in pretty good hands, but they're definitely competing for that second place spot versus Jordan. And speaking of Jordan, let's talk about their match against Oman next. And remember how I said earlier that Oman was back, and they're one of the most underrated sides in Asian football, blah 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 blah? Well, Jordan made them look like an absolute fool in this match. The stats show almost complete domination too. Yes, Oman had more possession, passes, and pass accuracy, but these guys only had 3 shots and 1 on target. If you're just passing and keeping the ball without any penetration, pause, then what the hell's the point? While Jordan, on the other hand, used what they had and took their chances, which is why they had 8 shots on target from a total of 16, and they made those shots count. In the 26th minute, a Jordanian attacker skills his way past 2 Oman defenders and then finds Al Naima, one of Jordan's best players in the box, who headed the ball in to muster up a 1-0 lead for the Jordanians. The Arab nation would continue to create more chances in the first half, but they would only make it count once again at the start of the second half in the 49th minute. And this is due to the fact that Jordan were given a penalty after a foul, the right call, and then number 9 Alwan stepped up to convert the pen and make the scoreline 2-0. After this, Al Naima would shoot the ball from the edge of the box in the 54th minute, and after a slight deflection, the ball went in to make it 3-0. And finally in the 87th minute, Ali Alwan with skill and pace abused his way past an Oman defender, and then slammed the ball into the roof of the net to secure a pretty easy 4-0 victory for Jordan over Oman. Jordan in this game showed why they were the finalists at the most recent Asian Cup, and they did it without their best player too, Al-Tamari. While Oman, man, y'all made me look like a fool after I praised you guys. Come on, bruh. But now let's move on to the final game of matchday 4 in Group B, where we had Palestine taking on Kuwait in Qatar. Since obviously Palestine's home games are not being played in Palestine, if you're keeping up with the news or you're on the internet, you should probably know why. But anyways, in the game, both national teams were getting their chances, and it seemed like the deadlock would be broken eventually, and it was. But it was because of a penalty in which a Palestinian defender sloppily fouled the Kuwaiti attacker. And in the 31st minute, Youssef Nasser Al-Suleiman calmly took the spot kick and delivered it to make it 1-0 for the Kuwaitis. But this lead didn't last long, because exactly 10 minutes later in the 41st minute, Palestine got a penalty after another sloppy foul in the box, and Wessam Abu Ali, a key Palestinian player, took his penalty calmly to equalize the game 1-1. But the drama would only continue in the second half, and in the 55th minute, a Palestine player, Camilo Saldana, got a red card and was sent off. Now I know what you're thinking, what a stupid decision from Saldana, I know. But secondly, what the hell is a player with the name Camilo Saldana doing playing for Palestine? Well, actually, this man is ethnically Palestinian, despite being born and raised in Chile, and definitely having a Hispanic last name. Additionally, he was developed with the Chilean youth club called Palestino. That was pretty interesting, right? The king of fun facts just dropped another one on your head tops. You're welcome. Back to the match though, Palestine tried to remain strong defensively even with 10 men, but Kuwait would eventually find the breakthrough in the 80th minute thanks to Nasser Al-Suleiman again, who got on the end of a great cross to bring the 2-1 lead to his nation. But the drama still isn't over, because in the 90+3rd minute, after a cross in Inshallah, Kumbar gets on the end of it and headed the ball somehow into the back of the net to equalize the game late and secure a point from this 2-2 draw. Now usually I would be like, this is a great result for Palestine, but these guys have the same problem as North Korea right now. They cannot get a win to save their lives, and there won't be an easier matchup than Kuwait at home. Home. So for me, I think Palestine is in a really rough position right now in terms of actually progressing from this third round. While Kuwait, yeah, these lot aren't going anywhere regardless, let's be real. Am I still salty about them knocking out my India? Yes I am. But now with all the games of the October window being done in Group B, let's go over how the table looks like right now. We got South Korea in first with 10 points. Yeah, these lot are definitely making the World Cup. Then Jordan are now in second after their triumphant 4-0 win with 7 points. Iraq are now in third with also 7 points, just a lower goal difference. Then Oman is still somehow in fourth despite losing 3 games. Kuwait are in 5th with 3 points as well, and then Palestine are in last with 2 points. So there is still some hope for Palestine and Kuwait, but it's just going to be a difficult task from now on. But enough of this Group B talk. Let's finally go over to probably my favorite group right now in Asian World Cup qualifying, Group C, where we got the likes of Japan, Australia, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, China, and Indonesia. And after the September international window, the table looked like this. Japan was on top of the table, obviously, with 6 points. Saudi Arabia was in second, despite being underwhelming, with 4 points. Then Bahrain was in third, surprisingly, with 3 points. Indonesia was in fourth, also surprisingly, with 2 points. Australia were shockingly in 5th place with 1 point. Crazy, I know. And then China was in dead last with 0 points. As expected, to be honest.
Oh, that was uncalled for.
Now let's go over the first game of match day 3 in AFC World Cup qualifying Group C, where we had Bahrain versus Indonesia. And buckle up, everybody, grab your popcorn, because this game had a ton of drama.
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about.
Now, both of these countries know that they're each other's biggest threats in terms of who can qualify for the World Cup. With Japan, Saudi Arabia, and Australia big favorites of qualifying or making it to the next round, it means one more spot is open, and these two are competing against each other for it. Now, Bahrain were definitely the favorites of this match. Not only were they playing at home, but they were coming off an impressive away win against Australia, where they beat them 1-0, putting them in a position of qualifying that they could only dream of. And for the most part, they made these advantages count. And although the possession stats favor them, the game was pretty even in the overall scheme of things, and both Bahrain and Indonesia had the same number of shots on target. The only difference is Bahrain had a ton of more shots, trying to capitalize on opportunities more than Indonesia. And this is the exact reason why Bahrain pounced first in this game. Straight away in the 15th minute, Bahrain was awarded a free kick, and Mohamed Marhoun knuckleballs a free kick from like 40 yards out to bring the lead to the Arab nation. And what did I say in the last video, bruh? Almost every goal in these Asian World Cup qualifiers is an absolute banger, and this goal was no different. Now, Bahrain were the ones dominating the first half with the shots, as they were eager in getting more than one goal against the Indonesians, but they failed to do that. Instead, in the first half at a time, Indonesia got a bit lucky with some deflections, and Ragnar or Tmanggoen got a great chance right in front of goal and slotted the ball in a way to bring the game back level to the Indonesians. Did Indonesia need a little bit of luck? Sure, but at least they capitalized on their one chance, so fair play to them. The second half was more of the same, with Bahrain getting more chances, but Indonesia was the one that pounced on their opportunities, with Rafael Stroik finishing a wonderful chance from the edge of the box to give his side an amazing 2-1 lead away from home in what was set to be Indonesia's most historic victory maybe ever. If Indonesia sealed the deal from here, the Indonesian people would have probably built a statue for their coach Shin Tae-yong, and I can't say I blame them. He would deserve it. But you see, in added time, in the very last play of the game, in the 90+ 9th minute, Bahrain would get a corner, and who else but Mohamed Marhoun, who would find his way to a rebound and score the goal to bring Bahrain level in the clash, and the match would end 2-2 following that. But here's where the drama lies. Bahrain scored in the 90+ 9th minute, while there was supposed to be only 6 minutes of added time, so the math ain't mathing. It might actually be the Arab Football Confederation instead of Asian for real. But okay, on the real, I understand why the Indonesians feel robbed. I would too. This would have been one of their biggest victories in football history, but there was some time wasting going on at that time. And with the law being a minimum of 6 minutes, you can't say any refereeing laws were broken with this goal either. But I feel y'all Indonesian fans, I'm pissed too.
Fuck, man. I'm mad too. Man, no, you're not.
I want to seal out the World Cup, man. But don't worry, beat Bahrain at home in the future, and I can see you guys there. Trust me.
We must stay focused, brothers. We must stay focused.
Moving on to the second game in Group C for match day 3, we got Australia versus China. Now this was a battle of the bottom heading into the October window, with Australia having a really poor September, losing to Bahrain and drawing Indonesia, and China, yeah, let's just say they got clapped. And not gonna lie, I mean, we all knew who was gonna win this game. Come on. Sorry China, but realistically, nobody believed in y'all, especially without your star man Wu Lei, who was out. There was just no chance, and Australia absolutely dominated this match. I mean, look at this. 18 shots, 4 of them being on target compared to China's 1, and 73% possession. Australia were taking the 3 points no matter what. However, the game did not start in Australia's favor. In fact, in the 20th minute, China were on the receiving end of a long ball, and Shi Weneg receives the headed pass and somehow keys the ball after dribbling past 2 Australian players, and then shoots the ball into the back of the net to put China up 1-0 away from home. Everybody and their mama was shocked. China taking the lead against Australia? Impossible. Could there be another upset? Could China be back in World Cup qualifying?
Whips it in, and Lewis Miller's there!
Yeah, Lewis Miller scored his first goal for Australia and equalized in the first half at a time to bring the game back even Steven. And then in the second half, it was all Australia. In the 53rd minute, Craig Goodwin makes his name known worldwide and scored an absolute golazo to give Australia their first ever lead in third round of World Cup 2026 qualifying. Seriously, what an amazing goal that was from Adelaide United's all-time leading goal scorer. And then in the 90+ 2nd minute, Nishan Villupillai scores on his debut to seal a 3-1 win for the Australians and get their World Cup qualifying campaign back on track. I was so happy when Nishan scored that goal, bro. I thought he was an Indian dude like me. Turns out he's Sri Lankan. But I mean, South Asian representation nevertheless. But overall, Australia got back on track. And China, Ooh.
Are you serious right now, bro?
And now let's talk about the last game of match day 3 in Group C, where we got Saudi Arabia versus Japan. And this game was always the most fascinating to me in match day 3. Not because it was two heavyweights battling it out against each other, or the fact that these two countries are tied with the highest amount of AFC Asian Cups with 3 each, but it's the fact that Japan are on fire right now, with them destroying China 7-0, and then Bahrain 5-0 away from home in September. While Saudi Arabia, despite having Roberto Mancini, the manager who won the Euros with Italy in 2021, being just a really depressing side with little to no offensive power. But even with everything I just said, Japan has, according to my ball knowledge, never beaten Saudi Arabia in Saudi Arabia. And that's what made this game really interesting to me, because with Japan being on fire, while Saudi being cold as hell, could Japan finally break this curse of theirs? And the answer is yes. Yes, they can. Despite Saudi Arabia having the more shots and possession in this game, they weren't as clinical as Japan, and this showed in the scoreline, with Daichi Kamada getting on the end of a cross in the box and putting his side up 1-0 in the 14th minute, and then Koki Ogawa sealing the deal in the 81st minute from a corner to put Japan up 2-0 and secure all 3 points from this game. So although this performance wasn't as impressive compared to Japan in September, even though the level of opponents was vastly different, Japan broke their curse of never beating Saudi in Saudi and secured another crucial 3 points as they look to qualify for 2026. I honestly gotta say, I've been very impressed with Japan and Moriyasu, who is their manager. I didn't expect this new formation with 5 in the back with Mitoma and Ritsu Doan as wingbacks to work so far, but I've been proven wrong so far. Fair enough. Let's now move on to match day 4 in Group C, where we're gonna start off with the Japan versus Australia game. As I literally just went over Japan, you would know that they were heading into this match on some really hot form, while Australia, not so much. And yes, I know, they just got the win against China in their previous game, but Australia have had a poor start to the 3rd round of World Cup qualifying. And with Australia having to play Japan in Japan, it wasn't looking too good for them. But to Australia's credit, they did pretty good. Well, good might be a stretch in terms of their performance, because they got absolutely dominated and only had 34% possession with 1 shot, none on target, but I meant good in terms of the result. You see, Japan dominated a lot of the chances in the first half, and even the second half, like they literally had all of the chances. But somehow in some way, the Australians took the lead in the match. Literally in the 58th minute, a cross was sent in by Australia, and Japan's Taniguchi had the funniest own goal I've seen in a long time, and somehow hit the ball backwards into his own net. I don't even know how this was even possible, but it happened. However, the Australians could not hold on to this lead, and Nakamura created a great chance all by himself, and when he crossed the ball, Australia's Burgess hit the ball into the back of the net instead to equalize the match. And surprisingly, the game would finish with these 2 own goals, and the end result would be a 1-1 draw, sharing the points. The first time Japan has dropped points in this 3rd round. But I don't think Japan is tripping too much about this. You'll see later, but Japan are in a pretty comfortable position to qualify automatically to the World Cup in 2026. Australia, on the other hand, will definitely take a point after playing Japan away, but they're gonna need to pick up some wins real soon if they want to secure an automatic ticket to the World Cup as well. But now let's swiftly move on over to the next game in Group C, where we got China versus Indonesia. And this game might be one of the weirdest and greatest shocks in the October international window, and potentially all of World Cup qualifying. Just a brief refresher, China have been absolutely booty cheeks so far. They got lucky to even make it to the 3rd round. Singapore's Hassan Sunni is literally the reason why, if you know you know. And in the 3rd round, they lost to Japan 7-0, Saudi Arabia 2-1 after having the lead, and then just recently lost to Australia 3-1 after having the lead as well. So it wasn't looking good.
It's not looking good, bruv.
While Indonesia, on the other hand, have one of their most talented generations perhaps ever, and are coming off 3 consecutive draws, with the most recent one against Bahrain being controversial, in which Indonesians feel like they should have won. So although this next game was in China, where the home fans would show up and make noise for sure, everybody in the world thought that Indonesia would pick up their first win in 3rd round of World Cup qualifying. And shit, I thought so too. It's China, bro. Come on. You can't blame me for thinking that. But you see, the footballing gods had other plans. Let's put it that way. You see, in the 21st minute, China had a free kick and just lobbed it in the box, and Indonesia should have taken care of it, but they got overconfident and China somehow got the ball back in play, and Bahram Abdulweli gets on the end of it and scores to put China up ahead 1-0 in shocking fashion. Now I know 2 things about what you might be thinking. First, what is a dude with the name Bahram Abdulweli doing playing for China? Well, he's actually not some footballer that got his Chinese citizenship recently or anything. He's actually born and raised in China and is a Uyghur ethnicity, which is why he doesn't have a common Chinese name, if you will. And second, China got the lead against Saudi Arabia and Australia and they still lost. Surely Indonesia could do the same and come back and win this game, right? Right? Well, not quite. Damn, bro, I'm rhyming everything today. I might actually be a rapper for real. Anyways, this is because in the 44th minute, Zhang Yuning was delivered a great ball and he finished it off wonderfully to give China a shocking 2-0 lead against the Indonesians right before halftime. That is wild. China had a 2-goal lead without having their best player Wu Lei playing because of injury. What the hell, bro?
What the Sigma?
Not only that, how are Indonesia that easily opened up for the goal? What happened to having a defense? Anyways, in the second half, Indonesia found a way to stop China from attacking, and instead, they were on the attack trying to get a goal to start the comeback, and they found one in the 86th minute, thanks to Tom Hay, whose deflected shot went in to bring the game back by 1. But this goal came a little too late, and China managed to hold on to secure a surprising 2-1 victory. victory. How, bruh? How? The Indonesian national team even dominated the game. Look at their stats, bruh. They were all over this match and they still lost. Indonesia, man, what happened? I wanted to see y'all at the World Cup, and this game was a perfect chance to secure that. But now this loss happens? What happened to staying focused, bruh? What happened to staying locked in? Disappointing, man. Really disappointing. But it's still early on in the third round, so don't lose hope, my Indonesian viewers. There's still a chance. Enough of that game though. Let's move on to the final game of match day 4 in Asia. Saudi Arabia versus Bahrain. And to cut straight to the chase, it was an absolutely boring 0-0 game. It would put any neutral football fan to sleep. Only one interesting thing happened in this game, and it was the fact that Al Dawsari missed another penalty for Saudi Arabia in the third round. What's going on? Just 2 years ago, this dude was dunking on later champions Argentina at the World Cup, but somehow now he missed a penalty against Indonesia in September and now against Bahrain in October. And keep in mind, these two penalties are a huge reason why Saudi Arabia didn't win those games. Saudi Arabia has to fire Roberto Mancini after this. I know he's a high profile manager, but clearly he's only there for a bag and doesn't care whatsoever. And plus, an automatic ticket to the World Cup is in major jeopardy right now for Saudi Arabia. I can't lie. And speaking about national teams in jeopardy, let's take a look at the Group C table now. We got Japan in first place with 10 points, and they're also 5 ahead of anyone else in the group, so like I said, they're chilling. Then Australia is in second with 5 points. I don't know how this is possible, but it is. The Saudi Arabia is in third with also 5 points. Don't let the placements fool you, they're still at a risk. Then Bahrain is in fourth with 5 points. Then Indonesia is in fifth with 3 points. They're still in touching distance of a playoff spot, so don't lose hope, Indonesia. Y'all are still in there, but they could have been in second place if they just beat China. And also, speaking of China, they're in dead last though with also 3 points, but with a -9 goal difference. But for me, the battle for second place in this group is going to be very, very interesting, and I can't wait for the November international window. But now, with all that being said, as you can see, Asian World Cup 2026 qualifying has been crazy in October. However, we're not done yet, because South America's qualifying was just as crazy, if not more. But before we talk about that, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it, and it means a lot, so thank you. And also, if you guys can, follow my Twitter and my Instagram, both at Nabuto, if you just want to hear my thoughts on football games, transfers, and overall, just to get to know me more. And also, make sure to join the Discord server, link in the description, and also follow me on Twitch. Live streams coming soon. So if you want to, feel free to hit me up with that follow. Thank you. Back to CONMEBOL. Before this October international window took place, here's how the table looked like. We had Argentina, the back-to-back Copa America World Cup champions, in first place with 18 points, Colombia in second with 16 points, Uruguay in third with 15 points, Ecuador in fourth with 11 points, Brazil in fifth with 10 points, Venezuela in sixth with 10 points, Paraguay in seventh, which is that Interconfederation playoff spot, with 9 points, Bolivia in eighth, just outside the qualifying spot, with 9 points, Chile in ninth with 5 points, and Peru in 10th with 3 points. And now heading into match day 9, literally every single one of these games was crazy. Well, except one, and that was Ecuador versus Paraguay, which ended in a 0-0 boring ass snooze fest. However, if we disregard that game that arguably Ecuador should have gotten the 3 points since they were at home and are the better team, the remaining 4 fixtures were bangers. Let's start off with Peru versus Uruguay, and my oh my was this a crazy one. Heading into this game, Peru were the only national team in CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying that didn't have a win yet, and despite them playing in Lima, meaning they were at home, it still didn't feel like that there was any realistic chance that Peru could even snatch 1 point from Uruguay. You know, the side that was third place on the table heading into this game and got third place at the Copa America that just happened this summer. But this is South American football, man. Anything can happen, and this game proved that. Despite losing out on possession by a long shot to Uruguay, both teams had the same amount of shots on target. However, only one team was able to capitalize on theirs, and that was actually Peru. You see, in the 80th minute, Miguel Araujo found himself somehow wide open in the box, and he headed in the ball from across to give a very late lead to his country, Peru, and they would actually hold on to this 1-0 lead, meaning Peru secured their first win in this 2026 qualifying cycle and potentially reignited their World Cup 2026 hopes. Okay, who am I kidding? Probably not, but hey, at least they'll probably comfortably finish ahead of Chile, right? That's gotta mean for something, surely. But anyway, speaking of Chile, let's talk about their home game against Brazil next. Now, Chile have not been good in 2024. They had a terrible Copa America, and they've been terrible in qualifying, but so have Brazil, to their standards obviously, and that made this game kind of unpredictable, especially when in the second minute, Eduardo Vargas finds himself open from across and heads the ball into the back of the net to give his Chile side an early 1-0 lead. Not really sure how that header wasn't saved. Alisson Becker would have definitely saved that. It's just a shame that he's injured though. Now Chile right here are in a dream scenario. Brazil are coming off a loss against Paraguay, and now Chile have an early lead. All they have to do is defend for their lives and not implode to this rather weaker Brazilian attack, with Vinicius being out injured this window, even though he doesn't show up for Brazil most of the time, but that's a different discussion for a different day. But guess what? Chile did what they do best, and that's to f it all up. Chile allowed Brazil back into the match and let them create opportunities for themselves, and eventually in added time of the first half, Igor Jesus would take advantage of that and headed in across from Savio to bring the game back level for the Brazilians. This was a huge goal for Brazil. I would argue that if they didn't get this goal right before halftime, things would be looking rather grim for this national team. But shout out to both the focus Igor Jesus. He did the business, and that Dragon Ball celebration was tough too. I just know he's playing that new game that just came out too for real. Then in the second half, I mean, it was all Brazil to be honest. And and late into the game in the 89th minute, Luis Enrique, the ex-Real Betis winger, steps up for his country big time and skilled his way past the Chile defender on the edge of the box and finished the ball in beautifully to secure a 2-1 win away from home for Brazil and a huge victory for them. The Botafogo boys stepped up when their country needed them the most. That's fire. And then after the game too, the Brazilian president, Lula da Silva, said that the national team should consist of more, if not only, Brazilian players that play in the country. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a ton of quality in the Brazilian league, but are you seriously telling me if Neymar is fit, you're not going to select him just because he's not playing in Brazil? Come on, bro. What is the president thinking? Even though I understand where he's trying to get at, I just disagree with his take. Let me know what y'all think though in the comments down below. I would love to know what Brazilian fans think about this. But anyways, let's move on to Brazil's rivals, Argentina, and they had to play Venezuela next away from home. Now this game was bound to be a dogfight, especially when you look at the state of that pitch, man. It looked like these guys were playing in a pool or something, literally. In fact, it was raining so bad that the game had to be delayed by quite a bit before it was even allowed to go ahead. Now even with all of this, Argentina still found a way to dominate possession. I mean, as expected, they're literally the better team. But they also found a way to get the early lead away from home, with Oceania getting a lucky deflection to him in the 13th minute, and he just hit the ball into the open net to give his country a 1-0 lead. And from here on out, you would expect Argentina to convert maybe one more chance or something and secure the W. But Venezuela are almost indestructible at home, and with them getting a ton of chances, it was only a matter of time before they convert one. And of course, Salomon Rondon would be the hero for Venezuela, with him scoring a header from across in the 65th minute to equalize the game for Venezuela. Death, taxes, and Salomon Rondon scoring for his country. These things are simply inevitable.
Inevitable.
Nevertheless, this game would end in a 1-1 draw, and Venezuela and Argentina would both escape with 1 point. This was a huge point for the Venezuelans as they try to qualify for their first World Cup, while Argentina, I mean, they're basically guaranteed a spot at the tournament already, let's be real. But now, I think it's time we move on to the craziest, wildest game of matchday 9. It's Bolivia versus Colombia. Now to be quite honest with y'all, Bolivia absolutely stinks at football, or at least they usually do. But you see, Bolivia has taken advantage of something during this World Cup qualifying cycle, and it's El Alto. Bolivia are always known for playing in high altitude games at home, at La Paz. But for this qualifying cycle, they took it one step further and went to their highest ever stadium, Municipal Stadium El Alto, which is 4,150 meters or 13,450 feet above sea level, and is approximately 1,840 steps higher compared to La Paz. And this makes it even more difficult for teams to come to Bolivia and play against them, giving Bolivia the biggest advantage possible to try and make the 2026 World Cup. And so far, it's been working, especially back in the September international window, where they slapped Venezuela silly 4-0 at home, and this got their qualifying cycle back on track. There was a problem this time though, and it was the fact that Bolivia had to play Colombia, arguably the second hottest team in South America right now, only behind the kings of the region, Argentina. Colombia literally made the Copa America final, and they haven't lost a game in 90 minutes in like 2.5 years. In fact, the only game they lost before October was to Argentina in that Copa America final, but that was an extra time, so it was looking grim for Bolivia, I can't lie. I wasn't expecting too much from them in this game, despite the altitude advantage, and I didn't really expect anything at all after the 20th minute, because one of Bolivia's players, Hector Cuellar, got a red card for slide tackling a Colombian forward while he was basically through on goal. From that moment on, I thought Bolivia was gonna get cooked, but I was wrong, oh so very wrong, because despite Colombia getting most of the great chances, they couldn't capitalize on any of them, while Bolivia on the other hand did, and it was thanks to the 20-year-old attacking midfielder who plays for Santos in the second division of Brazil, Miguel Terceros. This guy is a baller. Not only did he drop one Colombian player during this play, he dropped two, and then he absolutely unleashed a venomous shot straight into the top left-hand corner to give Bolivia an unexpected 1-0 lead over the Colombians. But that's not it though, because Bolivia managed to hold on to that lead, and they became the first national team to defeat Colombia in 90 minutes in like 2.5 years. Bolivia beat Colombia. Let me say that again for y'all. Bolivia beat Colombia. What in the world is going on here? Big up to Bolivia, man. They really want to be at the 2026 World Cup, huh? And I'm sure Colombia weren't even tripping too much about this either. They'll probably be at the World Cup anyways. Now moving on to match day 10, let's talk about the most boring game first. Uruguay versus Ecuador. This had 0-0 written all over it from the start. And guess what happened? Yeah, it was a 0-0 result. When the first few games happened of CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying, it felt like it was almost a guarantee that Uruguay was going to make the World Cup. They beat Argentina away from home. They beat Brazil. They were getting good results, etc. It looked like they were going to top the table, to be honest. And look, I'm not saying Uruguay are in some serious jeopardy here, despite the intro of the video. I had to bet y'all somehow. But Uruguay are actually winless in their last 4 games of qualifying, drawing almost every single one of those matches and losing to Peru. It honestly feels like Bielsa, the coach of Uruguay, is losing his grip on this team, and nothing seems to be clicking. Federico Valverde goes from looking world-class for Real Madrid to absolute cheeks for Uruguay, and the same could be said about all of these players, including my boy Darwizzi. Disappointing for Uruguay. But I feel like Ecuador wouldn't be too mad about this result. I mean, getting a point on the road away to Uruguay is still pretty decent. However, Ecuador really need to get some wins soon in the next couple of windows and fix their broken offense, or else they could also be in jeopardy of not qualifying for the World Cup either. More so than Uruguay. But we'll talk about how the table looks like after I cover the other matches. So let's swiftly move on to Colombia versus Chile, and this had beatdown written all over this game. I mean, look, Colombia did receive a shocking loss against Bolivia that ruined their streak, I know, but come on, you think the worst team in CONMEBOL right now is gonna defeat one of the hottest teams in CONMEBOL away from home? Be serious. Colombia absolutely dominated this match. I mean, 63% possession, almost doubled the passes, 18 shots, 9 on target. Yeah, Colombia were always gonna win this one, and they did, very convincingly in fact. In the 34th minute, the kings of set pieces Colombia had a ball sent into the box from a corner, and a player headed the ball far from the box and deflected off of Davinson Sanchez's head to somehow go in. I don't know how purposeful this was from Sanchez, but the ball went into the net, and Colombia got the lead in this game because of this, so fair play. Then in the second half, at around the 52nd minute, Chile made a huge mistake in the back, and Luis Diaz scored the ball from a very unselfish play to put his country up 2-0. Luis Diaz coming up clutch for his country, this has happened too many times now, he's too good. Then after some more domination in the 82nd minute, Jean Duran finally gets his second goal for his country, and Colombia go up 3-0. But this isn't the end yet, because Sinisterra joined in on the fun and scored off his own rebound in the 90+3rd minute to secure a thumping 4-0 win for the Colombians. I mean, this was bound to happen. If y'all didn't expect Chile to lose this game, then you guys just don't know ball. Even Chile fans were probably expecting to lose. But one thing I do gotta mention is that this Colombian kit that they were wearing for this game is just so beautiful, man. Colombia always got some heat kits on them for real. Let's now move on to the next game, where we got Paraguay versus Venezuela. Now, both of these national teams are coming off draws from matchday 9, which meant that both teams wanted to get a win this time around. And although Paraguay was playing at home, I would still say Venezuela had a decent chance of getting 3 points away from home. And despite Paraguay dominating the stats in terms of shots, shots on target, and possession, the Venezuelans were the ones who got on the score sheet first thanks to Aramburu, who scored a low kick finish to put his country up 1-0. But Paraguay would have the chance to equalize from the spot in the first half, and their best player arguably, Julio Enciso, would step up to take the penalty, and you would expect the Brian man to calmly slot the penalty in, but instead it was an absolutely god-awful penalty, and the Venezuelan goalkeeper saves it. What was Enciso doing here, bro? Really disappointing. Regardless, Paraguay were not dead in the water yet, and they turned up the heat in the second half, and of course it was one of their best players today, Antonio Sanabria, who came up clutch for the country and saved them. You see in the 59th minute, Sanabria made a great run in the box, and the ball came straight to him, and he easily finished it in the net to equalize the game. And then in the 74th minute, Julio Enciso makes amends for his terrible penalty and heads the ball to a great spot for Sanabria to finish it in, and that's exactly what he did. And with that, Paraguay held on to this lead, and they secured a big 3 points at home and beat Venezuela 2-1, giving them a lifeline back into qualifying for the 2026 World Cup. I didn't initially think that Paraguay had that dog in them to come back, but they proved me wrong. Damn. And Venezuela, yeah, it's looking rough, buddy.
Big man team, yeah? It's not looking good, bruv. It's not looking good.
Moving on to the next game, we got the kings of the region currently, Argentina, playing the massive underdogs, Bolivia. And although Bolivia have been playing very well recently, like beating Venezuela, Chile, and Colombia, Argentina is simply on a whole different level, especially when Bolivia isn't playing at their home stadium. Yeah, they were cooked from the very first minute, especially with Lionel Messi back in the picture for Argentina, the literal GOAT of the sport. It was gonna be a long day for Bolivia, and it certainly was. In the 19th minute, Bolivia made a defensive error, and sadly for them, the ball landed at Messi's feet. And when that happens, you just gotta pray to God that he slips or some shit. Sadly for Bolivia, that didn't happen, and Messi scored on his return to Argentina and gave his country the 1-0 lead. Then in the 43rd minute, Messi was on the run with the ball and he had open space to shoot. Instead, he decided to be unselfish and passed it to Lautaro Martinez, who finished it off instead and made it 2-0. But Argentina were still gonna cook more in the first half, because in the 45th+3rd minute, Julian Alvarez received a long ball and got a bit lucky with a bounce. Regardless, he scored the goal and put his nation up 3-0 before halftime. Yeah, it was over before the second half even started, but Argentina wanted to run up their goal difference, and they did just that. Despite getting a couple of close opportunities earlier on, ex-Atlanta United player Thiago Almada would finally get Argentina's fourth in the 69th minute, and then in the 84th minute, Lionel Messi would show that he still got it, dribbling past a couple of Bolivian defenders before sliding the ball in to make a 5-0. And then 2 minutes later in the 86th minute, Messi would do the exact same thing and hit the ball in from further range to make it 6 and secure a hat trick for himself, as Argentina go on and close out this match 6-0. Yeah, Bolivia got rinsed, destroyed, cooked, etc. in this game.
Oh yeah. I ain't gonna lie, I'm getting cooked.
And Messi, this dude got 3 goals and 2 assists in a 6-0 win. Yeah, he's the GOAT, bro, and he's still carrying on Argentina. Wow, he might actually play at the 2026 World Cup, you know. But now, let's finally move on to the last game of matchday 10 in South American World Cup qualifying, where we got Brazil versus Peru. Now, if you don't recall, Brazil have had a pretty underwhelming World Cup qualifying campaign so far, and although they got a 2-1 win away to Chile on matchday 9, they were really cutting it close with that one. So some would say that Brazil were in serious risk of not qualifying automatically to the World Cup. But today, despite injuries to key players like Neymar, Vinicius, etc., Brazil finally showed up during qualifying and ran up the score at home. Although it seemed like they'd go down early again to Peru, the goal was disallowed for offsides. rightfully so. And then around 20 minutes later in the 38th minute, Brazil will be awarded a penalty for an obvious handball in the box by a Peruvian defender. I don't know what that defender was thinking, bro. That was obviously going to be a penalty. And this season, Rafinha's been on fire, so when he had to step up and take the penalty, we all knew he wasn't going to miss, and he put Brazil up 1-0. Then throughout the remainder of the first half and the start of the second half, it was all Brazil, and they'd be the ones getting the majority of the chances. Eventually, at around the 54th minute, Brazil will be awarded another penalty after Savio was fouled in the box. And like I said about Rafinha, he's not missing the season, and he scored the penalty to get a brace and put Brazil up 2-0. Then later on in the 71st minute, Andres Pereira was scissor kicked the ball from a beautifully placed cross and finished it off amazingly to put the green and yellow up 3-0. Seeing him wear the number 7 is a bit weird though, I can't lie. And then in the 74th minute, Luis Enrique was scoring back-to-back games for his country and scored to secure a triumphant 4-0 victory for the Brazilians. Well done, Brazil. I thought these lot were cooked, but honestly, they played a lot better in this window. I don't know why, but Brazil are performing better without their most talented player right now, Vinicius, who in my opinion is about to win the Ballon d'Or. This is something really interesting to take a further look at. And also, Rodrigo feels like a ghost sometimes for this national team too. You hate to see it, but overall, when Neymar comes back, yeah, these lot are gonna cook hard again. I can feel it. Anyways, with both matchday 9 and 10 being completed in the October international window, let's take a look at how the table is looking like now. And first, we obviously got Argentina with 22 points. Then in second, we got Colombia, obviously, with 19 points. In third, Uruguay is still somehow up there, but they better be really careful, because if they don't start winning soon, they're gonna start dropping real fast. In fourth, we got Brazil, who climbed up the table a lot this international window. Then Ecuador is in fifth with 13 points. Paraguay is after that in sixth barely, with also 13 points. Then Bolivia are currently in the Interconfederation playoff spot with 12 points. Congrats to them. They had a hell of a window beating Colombia. Then there's Venezuela, who seem to have a good chance of qualifying to the World Cup, with them being 4th place a couple of months ago, but now they've dropped to 8th place with 11 points, which isn't even a qualifying spot. Then there's Peru in 9th with 6 points. Congrats on beating Uruguay though. And then we have Chile, the worst team in CONMEBOL right now, and they're in dead last with 5 points. Yeah, that's tough. Now that's enough on South American qualifying. Let's now move on to everybody's favorite, Oceania World Cup qualifying, aka the OFC region. But before we talk about that, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it, and it means a lot, so thank you. And also, if you guys can, follow my Twitter and my Instagram, both at Nabuto, if you just want to hear my thoughts on football games, transfers, and overall, just to get to know me more. And also, make sure to join the Discord server, link in the description, and also follow me on Twitch. Live streams coming soon. So if you want to, feel free to hit me up with that follow. Thank you. Now, it is important to talk about the Oceania World Cup qualifying, because with the World Cup being expanded to 48 teams, the Oceania region will have one guaranteed spot at the World Cup. So one of these bad boys is making the World Cup, hence why we have to cover the region. Will it probably be New Zealand? Yeah, maybe. But in football, anything can happen, so you never know. What? Now I have to admit something. Oceania World Cup qualifying didn't start in October. It actually started in September. And if you watch my previous World Cup qualifying review video, you would know that I didn't mention OFC at all.
That shit is so disrespectful. So disrespectful.
And it's not like I neglected the whole region on purpose. I swear to you, I thought OFC World Cup qualifying would start in October, not in September. So therefore now in this review video, we're gonna go over the first round that happened in September, and also the start of the second round, which happened in this month, October. You can't watch Avengers Endgame without knowing what happened in Infinity War, you feel me? Same thing applies here. So let's start from the very beginning in Oceania World Cup qualifying. The way it works is like this. In the first round, the 4 worst FIFA ranked OFC teams played in a 3-match knockout round, and the winner of this qualified to the second round of qualifying. Then in the second round, there's 2 groups of 4, and the top 2 teams of each group will advance to the third round. So nobody will automatically qualify to the World Cup from the second round of OFC qualifying, just to make sure I got that point across. And then in the third round, the 4 teams that advanced from the previous round would play in a 3-match knockout round in March 2025, and the winner of this would automatically qualify for the 2026 World Cup, while the runner-up, aka the finalist, would make it to the Interconfederation playoff. Now that we got the structure of this region's qualifying out of the way, let's talk about what happened in Oceania's first round of qualifying. And with that, let's meet the 4 worst teams in Oceania. First, we got the Cook Islands, who are ranked 191st in the world. Keep in mind, there's only like 210 countries in FIFA's official rankings, so this is a pretty bad ranking if we're being honest. And these guys have actually never qualified for the World Cup, obviously, and have never even made it to the second round before. However, it does seem like a beautiful place. I might need to take wifey here for a honeymoon someday. First, I gotta find myself a wifey though, you feel me?
Stop it. Get some help.
Next we got Tonga, the worst ranked national team in Oceania actually, with that being ranked 199th by FIFA. And fun fact, actually this isn't even a fact, this flag reminds me of an ambulance, not a hospital. I'm talking specifically about an ambulance. I don't know why I felt the need to mention that, but I did, so you're welcome, I guess.
Okay.
Moving on from that, we got the American Samoa, who are ranked 189th in the world, which is better than the Cook Islands and Tonga. And what people mostly know from the American Samoa is that they're actually the national team that got destroyed by Australia 31-0 that one time back in 2001. Conceding 31 goals in one game? Oof, that's tough. But fun fact, the national team's coach is Thomas Rongen, a product of the US soccer system and an ex-US under-20 men's coach too. An American helping out the American Samoa? How poetic. And now we have Samoa, who are ranked 185th place on the FIFA leaderboards, which is the best out of these 4 national teams. And a couple of fun facts for you, their home stadium is called Tolefua Joseph Sepp Blatter Football Fields. Sepp Blatter, huh? Interesting. And another fun fact is one of their players, Farrell Trainer, plays in Germany for a club called TSV Shot Mines, while another player, Alex Malolu, plays in Argentina for a club named San Jorge. Yeah, truly fascinating stuff. I just thought these 2 things were quite random, so I just had to mention it. Now let's move on to the games, where we're going to start off with Cook Islands versus Tonga in this semi-final style knockout game. And off the bat, I just gotta mention, man, these Tonga kids are actually so fire. If anyone knows where to cop one of these bad boys, let me know, cause this shit is hard as hell. Now, even though Tonga are the bottom ranked team overall, they actually ended up beating the Cook Islands, who are 8 places ahead of them. And this is thanks to 3 people. Tikoipa, who scored a simple one-on-one chance in the 27th minute, Polovili, the captain, who scored a penalty in the 39th minute, and then even though the Cook Islands got 1 goal back in the 63rd minute, Tonga's Kefu in the 79th minute lobbed the keeper to secure a 3-1 win and make it to the final of the first round. While in the other game, we had American Samoa versus Samoa, the Samoan derby if you will. Now Samoa actually won this game pretty comfortably, with Tamua scoring from the spot in the 59th minute, and Vai scoring in the last chance of the game in the 90+8th minute to secure a 2-0 victory for the Samoans, which means that in the first round final, we got the lowest ranked nation in OFC, Tonga, versus the highest ranked nation from the 4, Samoa. And sadly, there's not going to be some Cinderella underdog story where Tonga somehow shocks the region and makes it to the second round. Because although Tonga got the surprising lead in the 45th plus first minute thanks to Sonasi, Samoa equalized late in the 82nd minute thanks to Salisbury, who scored an absolute worldie that hit the underside of the post and went in. And with that, the match was set into extra time, where Famatau in the 105th plus third minute gets his head on the end of a free kick and puts Samoa up 2-1, a lead that they would hold on to the end, which meant that Samoa eliminated Tonga to make the second round of Oceania World Cup qualifying. So congrats to them, but let's be real, none of these lot are going to make the World Cup.
Okay.
And now finally, we're at the second round of OFC World Cup 2026 qualifying, and let's go over the groups. In Group A, we got the mighty New Caledonia, Fiji, Solomon Islands, and Papua New Guinea, while in Group B, we got Vanuatu, New Zealand, Samoa, who are in round 1, and Tahiti. Now I'm not going to introduce all 8 teams separately and give you fun facts about each of them, because frankly, who really cares?
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care. Let me tell you, we don't care.
But the one fact that I do kind of want to mention is that Tahiti actually made it to the 2013 FIFA Confederations Cup, and at this tournament, they got absolutely cream pied by Spain 10-0. I don't know why I remember this, but this game is ingrained into my memory forever. I can't help it. Now let's start with the first game in Group A of Matchday 1, where we got New Caledonia versus Papua New Guinea, a battle of the news, some would say. Now, New Caledonia would dominate the chances from the get-go, and at around the 20th minute, New Caledonia would get a penalty for a foul in the box, and Joseph Atale calmly takes a spot kick and converts it to gain the 1-0 lead for his country. Papua New Guinea would start to get chances after this goal, but their flame would soon fade out, because in the 45th minute, Gope Fenepej caught the goalkeeper way off his line and lobbed him to give New Caledonia a 2-0 lead. And although in the second half, Semi would bring Papua New Guinea within 1 thanks to his goal in the 70th minute, Haywajin would secure the 3-1 win in the 83rd minute thanks to his wide open shot in the box. A huge win for New Caledonia. They've done the business here. Now on to the other match of Group A, we had the Solomon Islands versus Fiji, and after some terrible meme-like defending from Solomon Islands, Fiji's Krishna would hop on the loose ball and score in the 13th minute to give his side the 1-0 lead, something that Fiji would hold on to for the entire 90, securing the 3 points. So with that being said, here's what Group A looks like after match day 1. We got New Caledonia in first place with 3 points and a higher goal difference, then Fiji in second with also 3 points, Solomon Islands in third since they only conceded 1 goal, and Papua New Guinea in last. There's still everything to play for, so let's see what happens. Now moving on to Group B, let's start off with the biggest match of the OFC window in my opinion, New Zealand versus Tahiti. And it was game set match from literally minute 2, because New Zealand pounced on a Tahiti defender mistake, and Elijah Just scored a worldie with his left foot to give New Zealand a 1-0 lead. And this lead will only get added on to throughout the match, with Chris Wood, the New Zealand captain and the Nottingham Forest striker. I swear, I feel like sometimes people forget that Chris Wood comes from New Zealand. But anyways, he scores a header in the 67th minute to bring the lead to 2-0, and then Benjamin Wayne would secure the 3 points in the 89th minute minute, with his goal gifting New Zealand a 3-0 victory over Tahiti. Big win for New Zealand, and it's a great and expected start from them. Now let's go over to the last game of match day 1, where we got Vanuatu versus Samoa. And I mean, this was game set match from almost minute 1 too, I'm not gonna hold you. In the 7th minute, Vanuatu's Mitch Cooper gets on the end of a cross and gives his country an early 1-0 lead in the game. Then in the 36th minute, John Alick would have a great touch around the keeper, and he slotted the ball in coolly to give his country a 2-0 lead. However, things would get slightly interesting, with Samoa's Viliamu bringing the game back within 1 with his goal in the 55th minute. But then in the 57th minute, John Alick again would score and give his country Vanuatu a calm 3-1 lead. So yeah, I kinda lied. It wasn't really that interesting. And no, Kalu would score in the 90+ first minute to secure a 4-1 win for Vanuatu on the first match day. And with that, this is how Group B looks like currently. We got Vanuatu in first place due to goals forwarded, then New Zealand is second for now, Samoa in third, and then Tahiti in last place in fourth. A lot can change in the November international window though, so let's see what happens. But anyways, that's everything that has happened in the October international window regarding World Cup 2026 qualifying. It's been pretty insane, right? I wasn't lying, but yeah. World Cup 2026 qualifying resumed in the November international window for Asia, South America, and Oceania. And some absolutely insane results have happened in this window. Saudi Arabia are at risk of not qualifying to the World Cup despite rehiring Hervé Renard, the manager that led the nation to beating Argentina at the World Cup. Back-to-back Asia Cup champions Qatar are also at risk of not qualifying automatically, and so are the recent finalists of the tournament, Jordan, who came away with some underwhelming results this past window. While on the other hand, Indonesia, United Arab Emirates, and China are somehow seriously competing for a World Cup qualifying spot. This is pretty crazy, I know. At the same time, Bolivia are actually in serious contention of qualifying for the World Cup, while Venezuela on the other hand seem like they're letting this golden chance slip away. And to the other side of the world, New Caledonia might be New Zealand's biggest threat yet for a World Cup 2026 spot, etc, etc. So as you can see, there have been many crazy results and upsets. And with that, let's take a look at everything that happened in the November international window regarding the World Cup 2026 qualifiers. Real quick before we get into the meat of the video, my fault for taking so long of releasing the November edition. I was actually in Thailand for a wedding and did some exploring after that. And if y'all want to see any of my future adventures in real time, make sure to follow my Instagram at Nabuto. We're close to 11k followers, so if we could reach that, I would really appreciate it. Also remember to join my amazing Discord community. The link to it is in the YouTube description down below. And remember to subscribe to the channel as well. Anyways, thanks for your patience. Let's get back to the video now. Let's start off with the AFC World Cup qualifiers first. And just a reminder on how this qualifying section works. For every group at Asia's World Cup qualifying, the first 2 places in the group get an automatic ticket to the World Cup, while 3rd and 4th place go to the next round of qualifying, and 5th and 6th place will be eliminated. Had to make sure y'all remember that. Anyways, starting off with Group A, the Asian World Cup qualifiers, we got Qatar, Iran, United Arab Emirates, Uzbekistan, North Korea, and Kyrgyzstan playing for a ticket at the 2026 World Cup. And after the October international window, the table looked like this. Iran was in first place with 10 points, Uzbekistan was in second place with also 10 points, just a lower goal difference. Then the UAE were in 3rd with 4 points, Qatar were in 4th with also 4 points, just a lower goal difference. Kyrgyzstan were in 5th with 3 points, and North Korea, a team I've become somewhat of a fan of, is in dead last with 2 points. With that out of the way, let's move on to the first game of match day 5, where we got North Korea versus Iran. A battle of the bottom versus the battle of the top. Like literally, these two are on the opposite sides of the table. And if this game was in Pyongyang, I would have said that North Korea had a decent chance of getting a result in this game. But for these qualifiers, North Korea are playing their home games in Laos. So yeah, I didn't really think there was going to be any chance that Iran dropped points to North Korea this time. And I was right for the most part. Iran dominated the game from the jump. And in the 29th minute, one of the upcoming stars for the Iranian national team, the number 10 Gaedi, gets on the end of a great pass from the captain Taremi and finishes it calmly to put Iran up 1-0. Then in the 41st minute, Taremi would be involved in another Iranian attack and got a calm assist to Mohebi, who finished off the chance to make it 2-0 to Iran. And then 4 minutes later in the 45th minute, Taremi would secure his hat-trick of assists as his layoff to Mohebi's second goal of the game would bring Iran a 3-0 advantage in the first half. Like I said, this was a pure dominant display from Iran. And overall, if you look at the basic match stats, they had 19 shots and 13 on target. From here on out, every football fan watching this game thought that Iran would handle business and score some more goals. But this is the part where I was wrong, because they let their dominance slip away a little bit in the second half. And it was thanks to a red card in the 51st minute to Khalilzadeh for fouling a North Korean attacker as the last man. And Iran were down to 10 men in the game. I swear, this is like Iran's 3rd red card in the 3rd round of Asian World Cup qualifying. These guys really need to stop shooting themselves in the foot. Anyways, with Iran down to 10 men, North Korea would start to cook, because in the 56th minute, after a cross, Taremi accidentally hits the ball into the back of his own net, and North Korea brought a goal back. Taremi felt so bad for Iran being so dominating that after assisting 3 goals, he assisted North Korea with an own goal. You gotta respect that. Taremi's a good guy. Anyway, shortly after in the 59th minute, Kim Yu-sung would get his foot on the end of a headed cross and score North Korea's second goal in 3 minutes to bring the game within 1. Surely, with North Korea having the momentum and the man advantage, they could come back and get at least a draw, right? Yeah, Iran somehow held on and secured a 3-2 win away from home. Being a North Korea fan these days is just tough, man. These guys genuinely might be the best worst team in Asia, if you know what I mean. Moving on to the next game of matchday 5 in Group A, we had Qatar versus Uzbekistan. Now this game had a ton on the line, with Qatar desperately needing a result if they want to stay alive in the World Cup qualifying dreams, while Uzbekistan at the same time wanted to get at least a result away from home to keep their automatic qualifying spot safe. So both national teams wanted to get the win. However, it was going to be difficult for Qatar to get one over Uzbekistan, because the last time these guys lost was all the way back in September 2023, where they lost to the United States 3-0. So the Uzbeks haven't lost in around a year's time, but Qatar finally showed why they were the Asian champions in this game. From the first minute of the match, the Middle Eastern nation were dominating the game, and in the 25th minute, this domination paid off, with Akram Afif finding Almoz Ali free and unmarked, in which he slaughtered the ball in to give Qatar a 1-0 lead. Akram Afif and Almoz Ali is one hell of a deadly duo. In fact, these two might be the only above average players for Qatar right now. Respectfully, of course. Anyways, Almoz Ali would find another goal right before halftime in the 41st minute, and of course the assist was from Afif too. Who else? Qatar were slicing up Uzbekistan's defense so much that I thought this second half would go 4-0 or 5-0 to Qatar. But Uzbekistan somehow clawed their way back into the game. And in the 75th minute, one of Uzbekistan's rising young superstars, Faizulayev, the 21-year-old winger from CSKA Moscow, and the shortest man on the pitch standing at 5'6", gets a header in front of the goal and scores to bring the game back within 1. How the hell did a short king get his head on the ball to score, bro? Qatar's defense is booty cheeks, but that wouldn't be the end of it, because in the 80th minute, the shortest man on the pitch, Faizulayev, once again headed the ball into the back of the net to bring Uzbekistan back level against Qatar. Not only did Qatar let the short king score once with his head, they let him score twice. Bro, how?
Are you serious right now, bro?
But luckily for Qatar, nobody's gonna remember this embarrassing defending. And thanks to the left back Lucas Mendez, who scored in the 90+ 12th minute, even though there were only 6 minutes at a time, to snatch the 3 points in this game for Qatar to win 3-2. Now I know what y'all are thinking. How did we go 6 minutes over the additional time? And my response to that is,
I have no idea!
Over to the next game of matchday 5 in Group A, we got the United Arab Emirates versus Kyrgyzstan. Now if there's one thing you gotta know about the Kyrgyz is that they're only really effective at home. When they're away from home, they're like a fish out of water, just completely useless. And well, that showed in this game. Early on in the 50th minute, Kyrgyzstan's defense makes a mistake in the back, and Harib Abdallah Suhail Al-Mazmi pounces on it and scores the goal to put UAE in the lead. Then in the 35th minute, Brazilian-born Marcus Maloney was scored an absolute rocket from way downtown to double the advantage for the Emirates. Gay golazo, by the way. And despite Kyrgyzstan getting some opportunities in the second half, Harib Abdallah Suhail, more commonly known as just Suhail these days, scores an absolute golazo as well with his left foot to clinch a 3-0 win for the UAE. Man, Suhail is cooking. He's easily been one of the best players in Asian World Cup qualifying so far. Teams in Europe have to start taking notice of this guy, and somebody has to take a chance on him. And no, for the Kyrgyz, yeah, they had no chance to begin with, let's be honest.
I'm sorry, little one.
Anyways, let's now head over to matchday 6 in Group A, where we'll start with North Korea versus Uzbekistan and Laos. Since obviously Pyongyang isn't hosting any games. If they did, we might not be able to watch the games, if you know what I mean.
You think it's so fucking funny, huh?
Anyways, with Uzbekistan just coming off their first loss in a year, it seemed like if there was any chance for North Korea to get a win on the board to save their World Cup 2026 qualifying hopes, the chance would be now. But Faizulayev and co had other plans, because throughout the entire first half, Uzbekistan will pile on the pressure and just keep getting chances after chance. Eventually, these chances will finally pay off in the 44th minute, with Faizulayev hitting the ball from outside the box, and thanks to a wicked deflection, it went into the back of the net to put Uzbekistan up 1-0 away from home. With his goal, Faizulayev has 3 goals in the last 2 games for his country in World Cup qualifying. I'm telling y'all, man, this kid is a star. I can't wait to see him blossom even more. Anyways, proceeding on to the second half, North Korea was slowly getting more into the game. Of course they did. They're the definition of a second half team. If they saw a handball in the box from an Uzbek defender, North Korea would get the chance to equalize from the spot, and Uzbekistan would go down in 10 men. But North Korea did what they do best, and that's missing penalties. This was North Korea's 3rd missed penalty just in the 3rd round of World Cup qualifying. They missed one against Uzbekistan in the first game away from home, then against the UAE, and now against Uzbekistan yet again. Yeah, let's just say we're never gonna see that penalty taker ever again. Also, this means that North Korea missed out on a potential 5 points due to missed penalties. If they secured those points, they would have been comfortably fighting for a top 4 spot in the group, but instead, they're now last. But I digress. Despite going down at 10 men, Uzbekistan held on to the lead and won the match 1-0 away from home, getting their automatic qualifying hopes back on track. And North Korea Nation, yeah, we're not making the World Cup, let's be honest. And I said we. I've gotten permission to become an honorary North Korea citizen during this World Cup qualifiers. Nah, I'm just kidding. President Trump, please don't execute me, bro. I'm just trolling. Moving on to the next game of match day 6 in Group A, we had Kyrgyzstan versus Iran in Bishkek. Now, if you remember what I said earlier, the Kyrgyz are booty cheeks away from home. But at home in Bishkek, they're a different animal. Thing is, they're playing Iran, the toughest team in this group, so I didn't have too much high hopes for them. And I was initially proven right, with Mehdi Taremi scoring instead of assisting this time in the 12th minute, and Hardani scoring in the 33rd minute to give Iran a 2-0 lead in the first half. In these past two games, Iran's first half performances have been close to perfect. They've been dominating their opponents. But in the second half, something switches off for Iran. Maybe the mentality isn't there, but they just look really lackluster and unmotivated. And this happened once again against the Kyrgyz. And with the power of them playing at home in Bishkek and having Joel Kojo, Kyrgyzstan's best player in my eyes, I'm one of his biggest fans, Kyrgyz fought back valiantly and almost had to come back thanks to these two things, with Kojo somehow getting a free header in the box from a failed clearance and scoring to bring back the game within 1 in the 51st minute, and then in the 64th minute, Joel Kojo scores once again, but this time from the spot, to somehow bring Kyrgyzstan from 2-0 down to 2-2 and potentially securing a very important point. And fun fact, Joel Kojo is apparently on the brink of moving to Iranian club Istiklal FC, so basically he scored a brace against his future home country. But it wouldn't be all sunshine and rainbows for the Kyrgyz, because Sardar Azmoun remembered that he was a professional footballer and not a professional horse racer in the 76th minute, and his great header brought back the lead to Iran, and the game would then end 3-2 to Iran, and they would get all 3 points. Tough luck for Kyrgyzstan, man. But if they keep playing like this, I wouldn't be surprised if they snatch points here or there. While Iran, yeah, they gotta remember that a football game is 90 minutes, not just 45. But now, let's move on to the last game of match day 6 in Group A, where we had the United Arab Emirates versus Qatar. Now, in the first fixture between these two sides, Qatar surprisingly lost 3-1, and this at the time felt like a little bit of a blip. Like if this game was played 10 times at home for Qatar, Qatar would win that game 9 times. This just so happened to be the one loss, you feel me? Or at least that's how it felt. I mean, it's literally the back-to-back Asia Cup champions versus the UAE. Surely something like this can't be repeated again, right? Especially with Qatar looking for revenge. Well, I'm afraid not, because Qatar failed to obtain that revenge. And that's putting it lightly, because they got destroyed. Not only did the UAE dominate the chances, having 9 shots with 6 of them on target, but they somehow prevented Qatar to get a single shot on target, even when they got one of the best strikers in the continent in Almaz Ali, and one of the best overall players in Asia, Akram Afif. Plus, the UAE dominated the scoreline too. Early on in the 4th minute, Al Ghassani goes on an incredible solo run before finding Fabio Lima in the box, where he smashed the ball in from the near post to give the UAE a 1-0 lead. Qatar would then proceed to get some opportunities throughout the first half, but then their extremely weak defense, especially Lucas Mendes, makes a big mistake, sloppily fouling Suhail in the box, and the UAE won a penalty. And of course, UAE's ace, Fabio Lima, would convert the ball from the spot with ease and bring UAE a 2-0 lead right before halftime. Well, that's a lie, because Fabio Lima would not stop there, because in the 45th plus 5th minute, after the UAE got a free kick, Fabio Lima hit it very precisely into the right of the net and obtained his hat-trick right before halftime. What a way to get your 3rd goal of the game. But the Fabio Lima story doesn't end here, because in the 56th minute, Al Ghassani wins his country a penalty, and of course, Lima would easily convert it from the spot to make it 4-0. And speaking of Al Ghassani, he would add on to the scoreline in the 73rd minute, and by the end of the 90, the UAE would smash and rip apart Qatar, their rivals, 5-0 at home. 5-0 in a World Cup qualifier? Qatar, what happened?
What happened?
These guys went from winning 2 Asia Cups in a row to conceding 17 goals in just 6 games in the 3rd round of World Cup qualifying. They look like an absolute mess, and it's mainly due to their defense. There's only so much Akram Afif can do to carry this sorry ass team. I'm sorry. Give this man some help, and I mean give him like a competent defense or something, or else they're not qualifying. I mean seriously, once you'll see the table, you'll understand how big of a risk Qatar are at not qualifying to the World Cup. And speaking of all that, Group A in the November window has finally wrapped up, so let's take a look at the table. In first place in the group we got Iran, who are still undefeated and have 16 points. They're definitely qualifying automatically, I can confidently say that. Then in second we still got Uzbekistan, who have 13 points and just got their first loss in the 3rd round. Then in the 3rd round we surprisingly have the UAE, who have 10 points, well done to them. Then in 4th we got the Asia Cup champions Qatar with 7 points. Sure, they might make it to the 4th round of qualifying, but they look so bad that they might fail to qualify in that round, just saying. Then in 5th we got Kyrgyzstan with 3 points still, and then in 6th we got my adopted team North Korea with 2 points. North Korea fans, if there are any of you out there, probably not unless you're like me, the World Cup dream might actually be over.
Yeah. I ain't gonna lie, I'm getting cooked.
But anyways, it's now finally time to move on to Asia World Cup qualifying Group B, where we've got the likes of South Korea, Iraq, Oman, Jordan, Palestine, and Kuwait. And after the October international window, the table looked like this. South Korea were in first with them being undefeated and having 10 points. Then Jordan were in second with 7 points. Iraq were in third with also 7 points, just a lower goal difference. Oman were in fourth with 3 points. Kuwait were in fifth with 3 points too, just a lower goal difference. And Palestine were in last place in the group with 2 points. Let's move on on to the first game of matchday 5 in AFC World Cup qualifying Group B, where we had Kuwait versus South Korea. Now, if you've been watching me, you would know that I'm a Kuwait hater. Not because I hate the people or the country or anything crazy like that, but it's because they qualified to the third round in place of my country, India, who just suck. I know, don't get me started on that. The point is, I'm a hater, but I'm gonna say something that isn't biased because of my hate towards Kuwait. It's just a fact. Regardless of them playing in Kuwait City, there was zero, if not a -% chance that Kuwait was gonna get a result against South Korea. I'm sorry, it was just never gonna happen. And I was right. It all started off great for South Korea in the 10th minute, where Hwang In-byum sent in a lovely cross for Oh Se-hun to head the ball into the back of the net to obtain the lead. Then around 9 minutes later, Heung-min Son, who returned with the national team this time, got fouled in the box and won the penalty, in which of course he converted it to make the game 2-0. From this moment on, I knew that South Korea was gonna win. I just wanted to see whether they would run up the score or not. And despite them dominating Kuwait on the pitch, they somehow conceded to them in the 60th minute due to Daham's absolute screamer. And this is why a lot of South Korea fans on my timeline are pissed, because how the hell did someone as good as them concede to Kuwait, bruh?
Oh, that was uncalled for.
But it didn't matter in the end, because Bae Jun-ho scored in the 74th minute to secure a 3-1 win for South Korea. Although it wasn't the prettiest, the job was handled by South Korea. Well done. Moving on to the next game in the group for this match day, we had Oman versus Palestine. Now both teams were playing for the win in this game, because whoever won this one would have a great chance of securing a 4th round World Cup qualifying spot. Palestine might have needed this win a little bit more though, because they literally haven't gotten a win up to this point. But thing is, they still don't got one, because even though Palestine had more shots and an equal number of them on target compared to Oman, they just couldn't find a way to score in this game. They're allergic to scoring goals when it matters, I swear to God. And this would cost them, because in the 83rd minute, Oman's Al Ghassani, not to be confused with the UAE's one, would get on the end of a rebound from his teammate's shot and would put the ball in to secure a 1-0 win for Oman and obtain a huge 3 points in the World Cup qualifying hopes, while Palestine would be ruining their missed chances in this game. Tough for Palestine, but Oman did what they had to do to get the win. Fair enough. And now for the last game of matchday 5 in Group B, with Iraq versus Jordan. Now this was a game I was looking forward to, especially because these two teams were vying for that second automatic spot for the World Cup, because we all know South Korea is going to get one. So I was quite optimistically hoping for a back-to-back goal scoring game. But I should have known better, especially when it comes to Iraq, because this game ended in a very boring and stale 0-0 draw, meaning both teams got a point. Yeah, that's all I have to say about this game, bro. I don't want to bore y'all with the details. But that was matchday 5 of Asia's World Cup qualifying Group B. So now let's proceed to matchday 6, where we're going to start off with Palestine versus South Korea and Oman, Jordan. Since obviously Palestine aren't playing at home right now. Then for me and many others, I thought South Korea was going to handle business and secure all 3 points. But it seems like Palestine is just a tougher test than what everybody thought. In fact, in the match, Palestine got the lead, with Kim Min-jae making a terrible error in the back, which gave Zaid Kumbar the chance to score a crazy solo goal, with him doing a 360 on the ground, controlling the ball, to then shooting the ball into the back of an open net to give Palestine a 1-0 lead. But sadly for Palestine, this lead only lasted a grand total of 4 minutes, with Heung-min Son scoring a great goal from a tough angle to bring the game back level. But despite South Korea dominating possession, with them having 74% of that, and the chances, with them having 16 shots with 6 on target compared to Palestine's 2, South Korea failed to score another goal in the game, and the match finished in a 1-1 stalemate. This was the second time in the third round qualifiers that South Korea dropped points against Palestine, with the first game of this round ending in a 0-0 draw. And fun fact so far, Palestine is the only team that has stopped South Korea from winning a game, with South Korea only dropping points to them thus far. Maybe Palestine is South Korea's bogey team and they got their number. I have no idea. But Sonny would speak to the press about this game against Palestine, and this is what he had to say.
또 팔레스타인 팀한테 정말 박수를 보내주고 싶고 정말 쉽지 않은 상황 속에서도 뭐 이렇게 정말 열심히 하는 모습을 보면서 저희 팀이 또 배워야 될 것들이 또
Heung-min Son already had my respect, but now it's even greater. But now with that out of the way, let's move on to Oman versus Iraq in Muscat. Now Iraq are hands down a better team than Oman, but away from home in Oman, who knew what was going to happen in this match? There was one thing I knew for sure though, and that's if a team was to win this game, it would only be by 1 goal. Because Iraq rarely concedes more than a single goal in a match, and they only know how to score 1 goal in a match.
He's right, you know.
And I was right, there really was only 1 goal in this game, and it would come in the 36th minute thanks to Yusuf Amin, who got on the end of a low cross and scored to put his country up 1-0. And that's it, that's all that happened in this match. And with that, Iraq secured a massive 3 points away in Oman. Now I know what you might be thinking, Ayman Hussein didn't score a single time during this window? And you'd be right, his consecutive goal scoring streak for his country has now ended. But at least Iraq has shown that they can win games even without their big man up top not scoring. But enough about that, let's now go on to the final game of matchday 6 in Group B, where we had Kuwait versus Jordan. And I don't know what it is with Jordan, but whenever they play Kuwait, they just fail to get a win, even though they're miles better on paper and on the pitch. It's similar to South Korea when it comes to playing Palestine, they just can't get a win. And this game was no different. Even though Jordan got the lead in the match in the 21st minute thanks to Al-Naimat, who somehow beat his way past 2 Kuwaiti defenders and scored an absolute rocket from outside the box to give Jordan that 1-0 lead, Jordan didn't really do much after that. In fact, Al-Naimat is the only one carrying this Jordanian offense right now, while Al-Tamari, who's supposed to be Jordan's star player, after all he does play for Montpellier in France, has disappeared appearing in back-to-back games now. Give all 9 months some serious help, man. Seriously, or Jordan is going to keep dropping points, which is exactly what happened in this game, with Daham scoring in back-to-back games in World Cup qualifying, this time in the 68th minute, and this goal was the last one in the match, meaning Kuwait and Jordan's match ended in a 1-1 stalemate. A pretty disappointing performance for the Asian Cup finalists, while a huge point for the Kuwaitis. But now with all the November games being done for Group B, let's go over how the table looks like now. South Korea are still in first place with 14 points, and they're still yet to be defeated. Then in second we got Iraq, who have 11 points and only conceded 3 goals so far, which means they've got the best defensive record in the group. Then Jordan are in third with 9 points. They really need to beat Iraq next time around if they want that automatic qualifying spot. Oman is then in fourth with 6 points. Kuwait is in fifth with 4 points, and Palestine is in last with 3 points. They seriously need to find a way to score some goals for real. But enough with this Group B talk. Let's finally go over to my favorite group of Asian World Cup qualifying so far, Group C, which is extremely tight right now, so go and grab yourself some popcorn. You'll thank me later. And in this group, we got the likes of Japan, Australia, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, China, and Indonesia. And after the October international window, the table looked like this. Japan were in first place with 10 points and remained undefeated. Australia were in second despite being underwhelming with 5 points. Then Saudi Arabia were in third with 5 points as well, just a lower goal difference. Then Bahrain was in fourth with also 5 points. They just have a bad goal difference with -4. Then Indonesia was in fifth, right behind everybody else with 3 points. And China were in last with 3 points. And despite beating Indonesia in October, they have a -9 goal difference, which is why they were still in last. Now this group is so exciting and close right now. So let's jump in right away and talk about that Australia versus Saudi Arabia match first. And there's a reason why I'm talking about this match beforehand. And it's because, well, there's really nothing to talk about. It was the worst, most boring match of the window, and it ended in a 0-0 draw. Yeah, that's it. Let's just move on from this one. Moving on to the next game, let's talk about Bahrain versus China. Now Bahrain so far have been overachieving in my opinion. They went away to Australia and won, and they're in a 4th round World Cup qualifying spot. While China on the other hand, sure, they beat Indonesia, but they lost to a weak Saudi Arabia side 2-1 despite having the lead, and got destroyed by Japan 7-0 earlier on. So surely this game should have been Bahrain's, and it should have been routine for them to get these 3 points, especially with Wu Lei missing the games for China with him getting a knee injury, and also with Bahrain dominating the match, having 74% possession. But even though Bahrain were creating chances for themselves in both the first half and even the second half, they only managed to get 1 single shot on target, which isn't good, especially if you're playing against China, man. With all due respect, of course.
What'd I do?
Go, just go.
But eventually, in the 87th minute, it felt like Bahrain got the winner, thanks to an incredible volley from the Bahraini attacker, who put the ball in to make it 1-0 and potentially secured all 3 points. But sadly for Bahrain, this goal was called offsides, and it was a very tight decision. I actually kind of feel bad for the Middle Eastern nation. And no, it goes from bad to worse for them, because then in the 90+ first minute, Zhang Yuning, the man who scored the winner against Indonesia, comes up clutch for the Chinese dynasty and scores a goal from a very well developed / lucky attack sequence to snatch all 3 points at the death away from home. That's right, China have somehow gone away from home and won a match, even though it seemed like that there was no chance they were going to compete for a World Cup qualifying spot. What the hell, bruh? That is just insane. The same team that conceded 7 to Japan has gotten 2 wins in this group. This shit defies the laws of the game, bruh. Defies the laws of physics.
Built a little differently, I guess.
And speaking of China and Japan, they actually played next, but we'll soon get to that. Before that though, we do have to talk about the last game of matchday 5 in Group C, where we got Indonesia versus Japan in Indonesia's capital, Jakarta. And listen, I know Indonesia are like the underdogs of the story. After all, they're like the only pot 4 team that has made it this far in qualifying. But when you come across Japan, I'm sorry, but Indonesia never stood a chance. And I think they kind of realized this themselves too, because they just sat back and let Japan dominate the entire game, which is why Japan had most of the possession with 67% and the more chances, with them having 12 shots and 7 on target. Not only that, Japan was showed their domination in the scoreline too. Despite Indonesia getting an early chance to get a rare 1-0 lead against Japan, Zion Suzuki saved it. And from here on, it went downhill for the Indonesians. In the 35th minute, after a great play from Daichi Kamada, his cross in the middle was later put in as an own goal from Hubner. Then 5 minutes later in the 40th minute, Minamino made it 2-0 after having a late run in the box and smashing it into the back of the net. Early on in the second half now, in the 49th minute, Rito would pounce on a terrible goal kick from Martin Baez and would score a goal into a basically open net to make it 3-0. And then finally in the 69th minute, Southampton's Sugawara had a free run into the box with nobody closing him down, and he smashed the ball into the net to make it 4-0, securing a huge 3 points for the Japanese. Yeah, it wasn't pretty for Indonesia. Although to be fair, nobody was expecting them to get a result. Well, except maybe for their fans. They sometimes believe in their team too much. But still, a 4-0 defeat at home, that is still pretty disheartening to see. But enough of matchday 5, man. Let's now move on to matchday 6 in Group C, where we're going to start off with the China versus Japan game. But before we talk about the match, look at this poster that was made before the game, bro. It's Goku taking on Wukong, you know, with Goku being the representation for Japan and Wukong being the representation for China. This genuinely might be the hardest pre-match poster I've ever seen in my life. The designers went crazy on this one. Anyways, this game was a rematch of that 7-0 thrashing that Japan gave China on the first match day, and Chinese fans were just hoping that there was not going to be a repeat of that.
No. Wait.
But this game was always going to be different, because not only were China in better form, but they're also playing at home, and usually they perform way better at home comparatively. And this statement would be proven true in this match. China would actually show a better performance on the pitch in terms of passing, defensive structure, etc, etc. But that would eventually be broken in the 39th minute thanks to Ogawa's header from a corner, which put Japan up 1-0. China conceding from a set piece? Yeah, that's a tale as old as time. And guess what? It happened again, this time in the 45th plus 6th minute, thanks to a rebound from a corner kick, which was finished off by Itegura. From here on out, it would seem like Japan would be in cruise control, and they wouldn't be fazed by much. But that actually wasn't true, because in the 40th minute, Lin Liangming, an ex-Real Madrid Academy product, that's right, you heard me correctly, this dude used to play for Real Madrid technically, received an open pass in the box and finished it off perfectly into the bottom right hand corner to bring China a goal back. This was the second goal that Japan had conceded all throughout the third round of World Cup qualifiers. And actually, this was the first goal that they conceded to an opposition player, because the other time they conceded was against Australia, but that was because of an own goal. So China kind of made history here, breaching Japan's unbeatable defense. And although the Chinese conceded once again to Ogawa in the 54th minute and ended up losing 3-1, this was definitely an improvement from their 7-0 defeat a couple of months back. And I mean, even Japan's manager, Moriyasu, commented about that, saying that this team was totally different compared to the first leg match. And with that, China are going to be feeling confident that maybe they can actually qualify for the World Cup. While Japan, yeah, we all know they're qualifying for the World Cup, bro. Let's be serious.
Come on, man. That's too easy.
Let's now move on to one of the best matches in this window, Indonesia versus Saudi Arabia in Jakarta. Now both teams were desperate to get a result here, with Indonesia coming off that quote-unquote robbery against Bahrain that would have sealed their biggest win in history, while Saudi Arabia just fired Roberto Mancini and hired back Hervé Renard, which means that they're desperate to make the World Cup. So this game was ready for the taking by both of these two sides, and one of these nations took it, and it wasn't the one who defeated Argentina a couple years back. From the very first minute, Indonesia was making their presence known, and Marcelino almost scored, but the shot just hit the post. Then in the 8th minute, Rafael Stroik almost scored too, and his one-on-one chance just went wide of the post. But as you can see, Indonesia was piling on the pressure because they were desperate to win this game, because this might have been their best chance to reignite their World Cup qualifying dreams. And eventually, Indonesia would finally find their breakthrough, and it wouldn't come from one of their many dual nationals, but actually from a player that has come through the Indonesian football pipeline, Marcelino. You see in the 32nd minute, Orat Monggoan finds Marcelino open in the box, and after doing a fake pump that sent the Saudi Arabian defenders back home to the Middle East, Marcelino shot the ball top bins and got the lead for his home country. This sent the Indonesian fans wild, and I can't blame them. If I was Indonesian and my country just got the lead against one of Asia's giants, I'd be hyped too. Then in the 57th minute, the unimaginable happened, and after a solo run from the Indonesian attacker, the ball found Marcelino, who somehow squiggled his way with the ball past Saudi's defense and finished it in beautifully with a chip to obtain a 2-0 lead for Indonesia against Saudi Arabia. And despite Saudi getting some chances later on in the second half, I mean, they literally had a total of 23 shots in the game and 77% possession, and also a red card to Indonesian defender Justin Hobner, Indonesia held on to this 2-0 lead, and this secured probably the greatest win in their football history, an initial Pot 4 ranked nation defeating the giant Saudi Arabia, the same team that beat the World Cup champions 2-1 at the World Cup. Nah, that is crazy. This win is so important for Indonesia, because if they didn't manage to get the 3 points, they would have been left behind on the group table. But now with this W, they're back on track to securing a World Cup berth. Build Shin Tae-yong a statue in Jakarta, I've seen enough. At any rate though, I do want this to happen, Indonesia making the World Cup, because they're a football crazy nation with the 4th biggest population. So the World Cup would be amazing with Indonesia in it, in my opinion. And that's why I'm hoping for the best regarding that.
Oh my god, bro, is dick riding all you do? No, I'm saying you literally got that dick in your mouth right now. I see it.
Now let's stop my Indonesia glaze for a second and talk about the last game of match day 6 in Group C. It's Bahrain versus Australia. Now a reminder, Bahrain beat Australia away from home on match day 1. So in this match, Australia were looking for revenge and they were trying to secure the 3 points away from home too. And they got off to a good start on their quest too, with Yengi, the Portsmouth striker, who got a red card in their initial meeting, passing on a terrible back pass from the Bahraini defender, and eventually got his way past the goalkeeper and scored to give the Australians an early lead in the first minute. And although Australia would continue to get chances in the first half, they would fail to score another goal to increase their lead. Instead, in the second half, at around the 75th minute, Bahrain's Abdul Jabbar would pounce on a defensive mistake from Australia this time, and he would shoot the ball from basically the halfway line and somehow score from that far out with Matt Ryan off his line. What a goal that is from Abdul Jabbar, man. And the craziest part is, he came off the bench and was only on the pitch for like 9 minutes. Then literally 2 minutes later in the 77th minute, Abdul Jabbar once again would pounce off an Australian defensive mistake from across and hit the ball in to turn around the game for Bahrain and somehow managed to get a 2-1 lead in the match. Abdul Jabbar went from 0 to hero real quick. He turned the game on its head for real. But then, right when it seemed like Bahrain secured all 3 points, they got a taste of their own medicine of what they did to Indonesia. And in the 90+6 minute, Yengi again would get on the end of a somewhat loose ball and score to equalize the game 2-2 and make sure Australia escaped Bahrain with 1 point. What's also pretty fascinating is Yengi scored in the very first minute of the match and basically the last minute of the match too. Crazy how that worked out. But now with everything that's happened, let's take a look at that Group C table and be prepared because this is just crazy. At first we got Japan with 16 points and a plus 20 goal difference. Yeah, they're definitely making the World Cup. It's pretty much guaranteed. Then Australia are somehow in second place with 7 points despite only having 1 win and having a plus 1 goal difference. Then in third we have Indonesia, who have turned it around in November with 6 points. Then in fourth we have Saudi Arabia as well with 6 points and also a -3 goal difference, but they're lower because of the less goals forwarded. Then in fifth we got Bahrain with also 6 points but with a lower goal difference. And then in sixth place we got China, who also have 6 points but are dead last because of their -10 goal difference. And the craziest part is about this one though is China are the only team outside of Japan to have 2 or more wins, but they're last place. That's how crazy this group is. Not only that, it's super tight. No team has lower than 6 points, and the second automatic World Cup ticket is everyone's to play for. It could be China who gets it, or it could be Indonesia, or it could be Australia still, etc, etc. Anybody can get it, and that's why I love this group the most, because it's just that entertaining, dramatic, and chaotic. You just love to see stuff like this. But with all of that being said, as you can see, Asian World Cup 2026 qualifying has been crazy in November. However, we're not done, because South America's qualifying has been pretty insane in this past window too. But before we talk about that, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it and it means a lot, so thank you. And also, if you guys can, follow my Twitter and my Instagram, both at Nabuto, if you just want to hear my thoughts on football games, transfers, and overall, just to get to know me more. And also, make sure to join the Discord server, link in the description, and also follow me on Twitch. Live streams may be coming soon, so if you want to, feel free to hit me up with that follow. Thank you. Back to CONMEBOL. Before this November international window took place, this is how the table looked like. And first, we had the World Cup champions Argentina with 22 points. Then in second, we had Colombia with 19 points. Uruguay was in third with 16 points. Brazil were in fourth with also 16 points, just had 1 singular lower goal difference. Ecuador was in fifth with 13 points. Paraguay was in sixth with also 13 points, just a lower goal difference. Bolivia was in seventh with 12 points. They were in that Interconfederation playoff spot, which is just insane. Then Venezuela were in eighth with 11 points. Their decline so far has been a pretty sad watch, I can't lie. Then Peru was in ninth with 6 points, and Chile was in dead last with 5 points, which is fair because they're like the worst team in CONMEBOL. Anyways, let's talk about match day 11, and let's just get the worst game of the window out of the way. Peru versus Chile, mid versus mid, and that's complementing these two sides because they're both cheeks, so cheeks that neither of them can score on each other, which is why this ended in a 0-0 stalemate. I feel bad for whoever watched this game in real time. I wish y'all got your 2 hours of time back, for real. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's talk about Venezuela versus Brazil next. Now, although I briefly mentioned that Venezuela are on somewhat of a decline right now, playing against them away is still a pretty difficult task, and Brazil understood that perfectly. In fact, despite being the more dominant side with the chances, and also getting the lead in the first half, thanks to a wonderful free kick by Rafinha in the 43rd minute, who by the way is wearing the number 10 with Neymar still being out, and also with Rodrigo also being out due to injury. What a great way to stamp your authority and show that maybe the number 10 does belong to you. Well, until Neymar comes back. My idolo definitely is going to want the number 10 shirt back, for real. But even with Brazil being more dominant, Venezuela still found a way to come back in the 46th minute thanks to Segovia, who scored a screamer from outside the box to send the fans into a frenzy and equalize the game. And that was the game. It ended in a 1-1 draw, and both teams shared a point. Disappointing for Brazil that they didn't win despite not being in the best form, but playing away in Venezuela is pretty difficult, so it's kind of understandable. Let's now move on to the next game on match day 11. It's Ecuador versus Bolivia. Now this game was played in Ecuador, but not just a normal stadium in their usual ground in Quito. No. This time they played at the Estadio Monumental Banco Pichincha, since it's lower in altitude compared to their prior stadium, which means that Bolivia were not going to have it easy since they're used to playing at high altitude, not low altitude. And this change of stadium worked perfectly for Ecuador because they absolutely cream pie Bolivia 4-0 and secured a massive 3 points. Yeah, Bolivia away from home ain't that threatening, let's be honest. But moving on to a closer affair, let's talk about Uruguay versus Colombia. And this game had everything: goals, drama, and pure chaos. After Jean Duran missed a point-blank header somehow, Guerrero would make sure that wouldn't matter much, because in the 31st minute, he caught the Uruguayan goalkeeper off his line and scored from a tightly angled free kick to put Colombia up 1-0 away from home. But Uruguay wouldn't let this get into their heads too much, because in the 57th minute, after a cross, Davison Sanchez actually slide tackles the ball into his own net, and the score was all tied up. But 3 minutes later in the 60th minute, the number 7 Aguirre, who plays for Club America, somehow got a free shot in between 5 Colombian defenders and scored to put Uruguay up 2-1 in just a matter of minutes. From here on, it seemed like Uruguay was going to secure a calm little 2-1 win. But then in the 90+6 minute, Colombia's number 9, Andres Gomez, had something to say about it, and he got a shot off an uncontrolled ball in the box and scored to tie up the game 2-2 in the dying moments. It seemed like Uruguay fumbled the lead and would be dropping some really necessary points to Colombia. But the drama does not end here, because in the dying moments in the 90 plus 13th minute, a disappointing Manchester United signing so far, which to be fair is like almost everybody, Manuel Ugarte, gets on the end of a loose ball into the box and slams it into the back of the net to put Uruguay back up 3-2 and secure all 3 points in what was a crucial game against the Colombians, the same team that knocked them out of the Copa America semifinals this past summer. What a win from Uruguay as they're trying to turn their fortune around after somehow losing to Peru last window. That was pretty unforgivable, I can't lie.
Embarrassing!
But now let's move on to the last game of matchday 11, where we had a pretty shocking scoreline in the match between Paraguay and Argentina. Now Argentina, of course, are the recent World Cup and back-to-back Copa America champions. Plus, they were on top of the CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying table. So even though they were away against Paraguay, they were still expected to win the game. And it seemed like they were going to do so, with Lautaro Martinez scoring in the 11th minute with a great finish. But I guess Paraguay playing at home brings them superpowers, because although Argentina played with an all-star lineup consisting of Lautaro Martinez, McAllister, Julian Alvarez, Enzo Fernandez, and Lionel Messi, the GOAT, Paraguay came back, with Sanabria scoring one of the best bicycle kicks I've ever seen in my life. Like, oh my goodness, what the hell have I just witnessed? That shit was so clean, I swear to God. And then Alderete scoring early on in the second half in the 47th minute from a free kick to give the Paraguayans a 2-1 lead. A lead, by the way, which stayed, which meant that Paraguay, against all the odds, defeated an all-star Argentina lineup 2-1 and got all 3 points. Very, very disappointing from Argentina. But you gotta tip your hat off to Paraguay, because they did great in this game. Now that was matchday 11. Let's move on to matchday 12, where we're gonna start off with Chile versus Venezuela, which actually consisted of an upset. Now I know what you guys are thinking. Nabuto, Venezuela beating a terrible Chile side is not an upset. You're right, it's not, because that's not what happened. Because although Venezuela scored 2 goals, one in the 13th minute and one in the 22nd minute, Chile somehow did the impossible and scored 4. Once in the 20th minute thanks to Eduardo Vargas, once in the 29th minute due to an own goal, one in the 38th minute from Capeda, and then he also scored the final nail in the coffin in the 47th minute to give Chile a 4-2 win over the Venezuelans. Venezuela, bro, y'all are kind of embarrassing, not gonna lie. I've been shitting all over Chile in these past couple of videos, and I've been praising Venezuela, to be honest. After all, you guys were literally 4th place in qualifying a few months back, but now not only are you not in a qualifying spot anymore, you also lost to debatably the worst team in CONMEBOL right now. Yeah, Venezuela is not making their first World Cup ever, bro. I don't believe in these guys whatsoever anymore. They've broken my heart by how shit they are.
You're breaking my heart.
Anyways, that's enough of that game. Let's go over to Colombia versus Ecuador. And not gonna lie, there isn't too much to talk about here, because the only goal that happened was in the 7th minute from Ender Valencia. But with that being said, that means Ecuador beat Colombia 1-0 away from home. Colombia, y'all were literally the hottest team in the world a few months back. But now in a span of a couple months, you guys lose to Bolivia away from home, Uruguay away from home, and now Ecuador at home? What is going on, y'all? These guys were undefeated for like 2.5 years. Now they've lost 3 games in 3 months. Colombia, wake up, bro. I'm trying to see y'all back at the World Cup. Not for the football though, I'll admit, but more so the female fans. If you're a single Colombian lady, man, hit me up on Instagram and Nabuto. My DMs are wide open. Now let's go over to Argentina versus Peru, where, well, Peru are pretty shit too if I'm keeping it real with y'all. So of course Argentina were gonna win, especially at home. Which they did 1-0 thanks to a Lautaro Martinez goal. But how Argentina didn't run up the score against Peru, I got no idea. Maybe Argentina should be slightly put on fraud watch. Nah, who am I kidding, bro? It's Argentina. They'll be alright. But now we move to Brazil versus Uruguay. In this game, something unexpected happened. Brazil seemed to be the better side. I know, I maybe should have seen this coming since they were playing at home, but Brazil have been so underwhelming recently that I lost pretty much all hope with them. But the stats don't lie. Brazil had 18 shots to Uruguay's 8, and 3 of those were on target. They had 62% possession also, with a pass accuracy of 90%, with 530 passes played. But even with Brazil having the overwhelming favor of these basic stats, they still somehow couldn't get the dub. In fact, they went down first in the game early on in the second half in the 55th minute due to Federico Valverde scoring a goal. Sure though, they got one back in the 62nd minute thanks to Flamengo's Jerison, but still, if Brazil won this game, that would have done a lot for their confidence. But a 1-1 draw isn't the end of the world, I suppose. And then there's the final game of matchday 12 in CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying. Bolivia versus Paraguay at, of course, El Alto, which means that Bolivia had the altitude advantage. And recently, Bolivia have been killing their opponents when they're at home. Like I mentioned earlier, they beat Colombia like last month 1-0, and they beat Venezuela a month before that 4-0 at home. So with Bolivia winning their home games being a recent trend, I thought the same would happen against Paraguay, even though those guys are coming off the high of beating Argentina. And it seemed like Bolivia was going to get this dub too, with them getting a great start in the 15th minute thanks to Erwin Moreno, who scored from a great assist that was given to him. Then for almost the entire match, Bolivia held on to this lead, and it seemed likely that they were going to get the 3 points. But one of Paraguay's best players, Miguel Almiron, stepped up big time in the 71st minute and received a pass from Enciso before boring the ball into the bottom right hand corner to level up the score. But then more drama would ensue in the 75th minute, when a Bolivian attacker gets fouled in the box, and a penalty was awarded to Bolivia to regain the advantage, which they did thanks to the one and only Miguel Terceros, who buried the pen to give his country a 2-1 lead. Right after that, a player on each Bolivia and Paraguay's bench got sent off for something that happened. To be quite honest, I'm not really sure what happened though, but it must have been something bad to get sent off. And then in the 91st minute, the most talented player on Paraguay in my opinion, Julio Enciso, comes up huge for his nation, with him dribbling by not 1 but 2 Bolivian defenders before absolutely slamming the ball ball into the back of the net from outside the box to secure a 2-2 draw and escape El Alto with a point. A huge point for Paraguay. While for Bolivia, this might feel like 2 points dropped. Anyways, with both match day 11 and 12 being completed for the November international window, let's peep how the table is looking like now. And first, we have Argentina, who has 25 points, as expected. They're literally the world and South American champions. Then in second out is Uruguay with 20 points, and after defeating Colombia, they took their place. Then in third is a surprising one, is Ecuador with 19 points. Then in fourth, we got Colombia, who dropped 2 places and has 19 points as well, just a lower goal difference. In fifth, we got Brazil with 18 points. Paraguay is right after that in sixth with 17 points. They had a great November window. And then in seventh, we got Bolivia, who still have that inter-confederation playoff spot with 13 points. Venezuela is in 8th with 12 points. Yeah, I can't see them making the World Cup, I can't lie. Chile is in 9th now with 9 points. They stink, but they somehow got a win in this window. And Peru is now dead last with 10 points. How Peru beat Uruguay last month and still moved down to dead last is crazy to me, but we move. But now that's enough about the South American qualifying. Let's now move on to the exciting and underrated Oceania World Cup qualifying, aka the OFC region. But before we talk about that, I just wanted to remind you guys once again to subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it and it means a lot, so thank you. And also, if you guys can, follow my Twitter and my Instagram, both on Nabuto. If you just want to hear my thoughts on football games, transfers, and overall just to get to know me more. And also, make sure to join the Discord server, link in the description. So yeah, follow me on my socials and join the Discord community. I would appreciate that. Thank you. Back to topic. Talking about Oceania's World Cup qualifying is pretty important, because with the World Cup being expanded to 48 teams, the OFC region will have one guaranteed spot at the World Cup. So one of these guys is going to make the World Cup in the US. Hence why we have to cover the region. Will it probably be New Zealand? Yeah, maybe. But there are some very interesting national teams in this region that will give the Kiwis a run for their money. So you never know.
We'll be there. Do you care though? We will be there. We will be there.
Anyways, let me remind y'all on how the Oceania World Cup qualifying is formatted. There was a first round, in which the 4 worst national teams in the region played in a knockout tournament format, in which Samoa won, which got them in the round 2 spot. Where in the second round of OFC qualifying, there's 2 groups of 4, and the top 2 teams of each group will advance to the third round. So nobody will automatically qualify for the World Cup just from the second round, just to make that clear. Then in the third round, the 4 teams that advanced from the previous round would play in a 3-match knockout round in March 2025, and the winner of this would automatically qualify for the 2026 World Cup, while the runner-up, aka the finalists, would make it to the Inter-Confederation playoff. So now with the structure out of the way, let's talk about the second round. So each team is going to play 3 games. 2 are in November, which we're going to talk about, and 1 happened in October. So for October in Group A, New Caledonia beat Papua New Guinea 3-1, and Solomon Islands lost to Fiji 1-0, which meant that New Caledonia was on top of the group on goal difference, Fiji was in second, Solomon Islands was in third, and Papua New Guinea was in fourth. While in Group B, New Zealand beat Tahiti 3-0, and Vanuatu beat Samoa 4-1, meaning Vanuatu was on top of the group due to goals forwarded, then New Zealand surprisingly was in second, Samoa was in third, and Tahiti were in fourth. What? Alright, that's a refresher on what happened previously in the OFC region. Let's now talk about the qualifying games that happened in November. Starting off in Group A, the Solomon Islands were playing against New Caledonia, and this game was very back and forth. From the jump in the 6th minute, a New Caledonian attacker was fouled pretty recklessly in the box, in which Joseph Atale calmly converted to put his country up. But not for long, because in the 9th minute, a New Caledonian defender slipped up when it mattered the most, and Rafael Leao Jr., not Rafael Leao, this is another guy, wasted no time and pounced on the opportunity to tie up the score for the Solomon Islands. Then even though New Caledonia were getting more chances to get the lead, it was Solomon Islands who would take it thanks to Javan Alick, who headed the ball in from a corner kick in the 39th minute to bring his nation a 2-1 lead. But sadly for the Solomon Islands, their defense was reckless yet again, and they fouled a New Caledonian player in the 59th minute in the box, and of course Joseph Atale isn't going to miss from 18 yards out, so he calmly saw the ball in to tie up the match. But it's still not over, because although this game has gone back and forth to both teams, there was going to be a winner, and it was going to be New Caledonia, because in the 69th minute, Willie Waye gets on the end of a great cross and finishes it superbly to give New Caledonia the lead once again in the match, and eventually secure all 3 points for them. Super tough luck for the Solomon Islands, man. If they got a result in this match, their destiny could have changed. But football is a cruel sport. Moving on to the next game of match day 2 in the Oceanian region, we got Papua New Guinea versus Fiji. And this game was back and forth just like the other one. This is what I love about this region, man. Sure, I don't know much about the sport in this region, I'm not gonna lie, but these games are just pure entertainment. Anyways, this match starts off early in the 2nd minute, with Joe, yes Joe, that's literally his name, scoring for Papua New Guinea in the 2nd minute to give them the lead in this match. But then in the 42nd minute, Fiji would find their way back into the game thanks to a header right in front of goal from Dunn. But 3 minutes later in the 45th minute, PNG, no, not the image thing, this is just an abbreviation for Papua New Guinea, will get their lead back thanks to Atikepo, who did some sort of bicycle kick-ish when the goalkeeper was in no man's land and scored to give his country the lead before halftime. But early on in the second half, Fiji would crawl back, and Krishna, the man who scored on the first match day, will score again on the second match day this time through a penalty. But that doesn't matter, because in the 90+4th minute, at the end of the match, Raymond Gunembo would jump up high from a lopsided lopsided cross and beat the goalkeeper to score in what looked like the winner for PNG. But it wasn't, because literally 1 minute later in the 90+5th minute, Fiji's Nan would somehow be left wide open in the box and headed the ball in to end the game as a 3-3 draw. How he was that wide open at the end of the game, I got no idea. But this was a huge missed opportunity for Papua New Guinea, and only time would tell how much this would cost them. But now let's go over to match day 3, where we're going to start off with Fiji versus New Caledonia. And this game was a stalemate. Christian scored once again for Fiji, and it was again a penalty. I swear, Fiji be getting a lot of those, while New Caledonia would tie it back up in the 59th minute thanks to a goal from Katrawa. And with that, the match ended 1-1, and both of these teams shared the points. While in the Papua New Guinea versus Solomon Islands match, it was pretty much game over from the start, with Solomon Islands dominating play, and this would pay off with 2 goals. One in the 41st minute thanks to David, and one in the 68th minute thanks to Lia Alafa. And even though PNG's semi got a goal back at that time, it wasn't enough, and Solomon Islands ended up winning this game 3-2, which means the final Group A table of OFC World Cup qualifying looked like this. And first we have New Caledonia, who stayed undefeated and got 7 points. They were definitely the best team in this group. Then the second is Fiji with 5 points, deserved 2 in my opinion. Then is Solomon Islands in third, who got 3 points, and Papua New Guinea, who finished last with 1 point. If they beat Fiji, maybe it could have been them making the next round, but like I said, football can be a cruel sport sometimes. Let's now move on to Group B, where we're going to start off with the match between Samoa and Tahiti. Now listen, we all know that Samoa came from round 1, which means that they're one of the worst 4 teams in this region, and honestly throughout the entire world. So sure, maybe Tahiti isn't that good of a national team on the pitch, but against Samoa, they can look like prime Barcelona for real, and that's what they looked like in the second half, despite the rain conditions making the pitch worse. Starting off in the 59th minute, Eddie Cosberg gets on the end of a beautiful ball and heads it strongly into the back of the net to obtain the lead against Samoa. Then Tahiti will run up the score, with Maton scoring in the 65th minute and Tionui Tahau scoring in the 87th minute to secure a 3-0 win for Tahiti, getting a big 3 points for this race to qualify for the World Cup. While in the other match between New Zealand and Vanuatu, it wasn't pretty, at least if you're a Vanuatu fan, because they got absolutely destroyed 8-1, and there were 7 different goal scores for New Zealand in that match. And if you were curious, Chris Wood scored 2 goals in 2 minutes in this game. Yeah, Vanuatu was no match for these guys. Then moving on to match day 3 of Group B, we're going to start off with Tahiti versus Vanuatu. Now I personally would say that Tahiti are the better team between these two sides, but it's pretty close. Well, definitely closer compared to New Zealand and Vanuatu, that's for sure. But with Tahiti getting some positive momentum after beating Samoa, and Vanuatu coming off a heavy loss, mentality was definitely at play here, and Tahiti had the stronger one of course. So with that being said, Tahiti won this game 2-0 thanks to goals from Spokey Jack and Vanuatu player. It was an own goal, but what a name by the way, in the 8th minute, and Maton scoring from the spot in the 67th minute to secure 3 points. A huge 3 points against their biggest rivals in the group. While in the other game between Samoa and New Zealand, yeah, the less we speak about it the better, because New Zealand destroyed these guys 8-0 at, I swear, like 50% power. They easily could have won 10-0 or something if they really tried to run up the score, which I believe they didn't try to do, just to save Samoa from embarrassment. The Kiwis might be some good guys, man. So now with the Group B games over and done with, let's take a look at the final standings. We have New Zealand in first, of course, with 9 points, winning every single game and having a plus 18 goal difference. Then there's Tahiti in second with 6 points. Vanuatu sadly misses out on a qualifying spot, with them finishing in third with 3 points, and Samoa finished in dead last with 0 points and a negative 14 goal difference. But they're just glad they even made it this far, to be honest. But yeah, with the second round now being completed in the OFC, let's preview the third round really quickly. It's the same structure as the first round, with it being a knockout stage tournament, and whoever wins this will make the World Cup, while the finalists will go to the Inter-Confederation playoff. Now for the semi-final matchups, we got New Caledonia versus Tahiti. I'm excited for this matchup since this seems quite even, while in the other semi-final, we have New Zealand versus Fiji. Yeah, Fiji, sorry, y'all are screwed. Now I think we all know who's probably going to make it to the World Cup. It's probably New Zealand, but just imagine somehow New Caledonia pulls off the upset and makes the World Cup instead. That would be hype. But anyways, that's everything that happened in the November international window regarding World Cup qualifiers for 2026. It's been pretty insane, right? I wasn't lying. But yeah, I hope this helped cover you guys on what's going on in World Cup qualifying right now. And this was one long video, so I hope you guys got something out of this. But anyways, if you did enjoy this video, please remember to subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Also follow my Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and join the Discord community. The links to all of that are in the YouTube description down below. And last but not least, if you want to learn how Chelsea are doing so good in the Premier League this season, you definitely want to check out this video right here. You won't regret it.